What's up, everybody? It's the boys back again. Welcome to episode 41, extension season uploading of the Sports Hour Plus with Miller and Watson featuring CT3 slash Trey. And happy Labor Day weekend to you all. Get some sleep, get some rest, enjoy some basketball, some baseball, whatever you do on Labor Day, enjoy it. Hug a union member. If there's union people in your family, hug them because if it wasn't for them, y'all wouldn't be getting. None of us would be getting this weekend. So let's all appreciate our unions. They do God's work. But you see, I'm rocking out with Trey. Morgan is in Nashville this weekend, or Smashville. I know that some of y'all call it, correct, Trey? Nashville is she's celebrating her and not really the end of summer, but end of summer slash autumn of weddings. As she mentioned last week, I believe that she told y'all that at point she'll be here. Sometimes she won't because she has a lot of weddings this end of summer into fall. So pray for Morgan's wallet, y'all. But yeah, y'all see I'm rocking out with Trey. Trey, how you doing, man?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. I will take that advice of getting some rest over this weekend. Although it's called Labor Day, I'm definitely going to get some sleep. I was telling him before we came on air that I've had a, a long week. My sleep schedule's kind of got jacked up, so I think I need to take it easy this weekend. Go to sleep a little bit earlier. Get right for Monday, or rather Tuesday.
Yeah, man. You gotta get it right, man. Those that don't know, I mean Trey and I are real good friends. Trey knows, y'all don't. I put in a lot of work over the early part of this week. I had to write. Some some people may have been confused, right? Because I know I sent it out, so y'all probably saw a bunch of Tribune articles that were like, "Dang, Kyle's really been working." Even Trey was like, "Did you send me the same article three times?" No, there were three different articles that just so happened to happen in the span of 4 days. So yeah, it was a lot going on in the city last week. It's a little chiller this weekend because most people are on the or at the shore, as we say. We're at I don't know what y'all say at other places. So most of y'all are at the beach. Let's be real. During this weekend, that's why I stay away from the beach during Labor Day. But we thank you all for listening. Definitely thank you for the support. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe and share. Friends don't let friends, brother don't let brother, sister don't let sister miss out on a good podcast. Share this, y'all. Share it. And don't forget to follow us on X/Twitter. Morgan is at M_India_Miller. I am at Kylan W. Watson on X/Twitter. And Trey is the different person here. He only has or is only really active on his Insta. So at Mr. Taylor, three eyes, three lowercase eyes. So definitely follow him there. He'll bring this up later, but Mr. Taylor movies. Make sure y'all look at his short film. Y'all know Trey is an accountant. He's like Batman, right? He's an accountant by day, superstar filmmaker by night. So definitely make sure y'all check him out. Check out all those future all those future. We might have a future Oscar winner here, so you never know. So y'all can say y'all do and win. So definitely check that out. Obviously, you see it down in the description below. Check me out, the Philly Tribune. Last word on sports.com. Just put out something there today, this morning, right, Trey? So yeah, I do so much I forget. And obviously I'll be getting more active on WatsonSportsTakes.com with football. Well, football started since last weekend, but y'all know NFL starting next weekend. You'll definitely look out for that 11 o'clock, 11:30 Eagles Packers recap article next Friday, which is crazy that's next week. But getting right to it, speaking of Brandon Ayuk, he trolled us all, he fooled us all. He decided to stay in the Bay. Brandon Ayuk staying with the 49ers, 4 years, $120 million extension. That kind of seems cheap, but y'all have to remember he is a good receiver, but really low end because the primary receiver obviously is Debo. For real, even real 49ers fans know the primary receiver is George Kittle. Everybody else is secondary, but it's George Kittle for real, for real. But Trey, what's your reaction to this? I know we all basically had him pinned for going 6 hours away in Pittsburgh, but what you got to say about this?
I mean, I think we talked about this, and I think it's now been 3 or 4 weeks now since we first talked about some of the NFL free agent stuff, and I think we both agreed that it would be stupid for the 49ers not to try to bring him back, because despite the fact, like you mentioned, he's technically, if you're considering the tight end, that he's like the third option, but he is nonetheless a phenomenal receiver. Um, so for me, I think obviously it's a smart decision. They keep their two best receivers, wide receivers, and they still have George Kittle. Um, and I think this is actually if you're a Steelers fan, this is probably a sad day for you because um, it was looking like that might be the case, and I think a wide receiving core with adding Brandon Ayuk to that with the likes of George Pickens, and I'm blanking on their 2 and 3 receivers, but that was
Oh,
a potential deadly.
they released them. You know one very well,
Right,
Quez.
Quez, yeah, yeah. But nonetheless, that would have been a pretty formidable receiving core, provided that Russell Wilson can kind of come back to form, because we know especially that the Pittsburgh defense is pretty good. So to keep it short, honestly, I mean, great signing. Hopefully, there's no how do I put it? There's no animosity between him and the team, and hopefully he's able to kind of seamlessly get back into things, make sure he's in game shape and be ready for week one. And that the kind of the holding out as it were of this doesn't impact chemistry on the field.
Oh, sorry. I thought you would be longer than that. I'm in the middle of sharing all this podcast and tweeting stuff. But yeah. So for me, I thought he was all but gone last week when we did this show. I said that he was basically all but the Steelers, unless something crazy happened. And clearly something crazy happened, and the 49ers decided that, they did not want to live in a world where it was just Debo Samuels and George Kittle, and that was it as far as for Brock Purdy's targets. Clearly, I think this says a lot about what's behind Brandon Ayuk and Debo Samuels. Like I know they have Jennings. But I think that's it, and I think that says a lot more about the 49ers backups than they do about Brandon Ayuk. Obviously, they valued him, but this is sort of a what you have is better than what you don't have. The devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. So I think that they didn't want to risk, like obviously the Steelers were not going to give them, like you said, George Pickens, Najee, or any other like real good asset that would help them right now. So I think that, it's kind of became a thing where the 49ers were like, yo, we're not going to trade you. Here, take your money, shut up, and come on down. That's essentially what happened, I think. And I think that this says, like I said, I think this says more about I think this says a lot about the way John Lynch drafts receivers. Let me put it like this. This says more about the 49ers front office than it does about Brandon Ayuk's value. This is just we have nothing behind you, and we know Debo gets injured a lot. We know that we do not want to see George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey try to lead this offense, and we already know what it looks like when there's nothing else around Brock Purdy. So we know that the 49ers offense does this when there's no weapons around Brock Purdy. So, I think this kind of says a lot about John Lynch's priorities, and I think he needs to figure that one out because Debo Samuel, George Kittle, and Brandon Ayuk aren't getting any younger, and so they kind of need to get that George Kittle replacement, get that Brandon Ayuk replacement, and get that Debo Samuel replacement, especially right now while Brock Purdy is pretty cheap. Because once Brock Purdy gets that extension, it's over for the 49ers as far as building. So, like I said, I think this says more about the front office and the bench, for lack of a better term, than it does about anything of Brandon Ayuk. But good for him, as Trey is fond of saying, or as you've heard a lot of people say, especially accountants, right? Yesterday's price isn't today's price. So I'm never going to begrudge Brandon Ayuk or anybody for taking advantage of a situation where it's not his fault the 49ers didn't plan. So good for him. He got his money. Now we'll get to see what the 49ers really look like now with a full year of Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Debo Samuel, and now Brandon Ayuk. So I think what this means for the 49ers is they are still firmly second to me. I think, like I've said a few weeks ago, like I say when we do this question, I try to take biased eyes off, but I still think just objectively it's the Eagles, man. The Eagles got better. We talked ad nauseum last week, Morgan and I, about just when you thought the Eagles were done, they get Jahan Dotson. I don't know why anybody in the NFL takes Howie Roseman's calls because he's going to take your lunch money. And every time somebody takes his call and he somehow finds a way of getting like a DeAndre Swift, I mean, it's always ridiculous how he swindles these GMs, bro. It's always ridiculous. And so, I think firmly right now that it's the Eagles at 1, the 49ers at 1B or 2 for me. And then it's probably the Lions just by default because I have faith in the Packers, but I just don't think there's enough around Jordan Love to justify it. But that's my top 3. I think the 49ers are second. I think that they have a lot to prove going into this season. Can is Brock Purdy worthy of that money he's about to get in another year or two? You know, do they need another tight end? Because George Kittle, he's great, but I mean, like I say, he's not getting any younger. Debo Samuel, he's made of glass himself, but when he's healthy, he's a weapon. But one you can kind of scheme around if you're a defense, as the Chiefs showed. Brandon Ayuk just needs to get more touches, man. I think Brandon Ayuk is kind of the forgotten man, Like I said, if you include Christian McCaffrey, he's the 4th option. Trey gave him disrespect by saying he's the 3rd, but we didn't even include Christian McCaffrey in this. Kind of disrespectful to the Madden 25 cover athlete by not including him, but that's because he's not a receiver. I'm of the mindset that Brandon Ayuk probably needs more touches for the 49ers offense to really go for the next level. But to me, I think this firmly puts them as the second best team in the NFC, probably the 3rd best team in the NFL overall, or 4th, because to me it's the Eagles, it's the Chiefs, it's the Ravens, then probably the 49ers. I don't really know how Trey has that ranked, but that's where I am. The 49ers, 2nd in the NFC, 4th in the NFL overall, or 3rd, depending on how you rate the Ravens. But I'm going to turn this back over to Trey. Go ahead.
No, I agree with you. I think this puts them back where they were, which is like you said, 1B, 2. I think the difference is slim. I mean, and this is the unbiased opinion as an Eagles fan. But I think the big thing, the difference, if you're talking about what does this mean for the 49ers as far as their playoff implications, is it Super Bowl? Is it best team in the NFC? Whatever it might be, right? Is at quarterback, obviously, right? Brock Purdy is a very serviceable quarterback. He's I would say a top tier game manager, right? But we have, or the Eagles have, Jalen Hurts, and so I think in that sense I think that gives the Eagles the leg up. They both have arguably 2 of the best receiving cores in the league, especially now bringing back Brandon Ayuk for the 49ers. So for me, it means for the 49ers that they have their core offense, provided they stay healthy. That's a dangerous offense when they're healthy. And 2, it means that they're better equipped to compete against other teams with formidable defenses and not feeling like they have to solely focus on, if one of the 3, without Brandon Ayuk gets locked up, then it's like, okay, now we got to key in on George Kittle and only Christian McCaffrey because, they have their other weapons, of course. But those are your 4 key weapons for the 49ers offense. And if, as Colin mentioned, 1 or 2 of those are injured or locked up, then it kind of constricts that 49er offense. So for me, the 49ers are, I agree with you there somewhere. They're like 1B or 2. I don't know if I would put the Packers there. We saw a lot, and we saw a lot of good end of last season for the Packers. And
You mean the
one
Lions
of
as a
part of that,
line? You mean the Lions
or
as a
rather,
line?
yeah, we're still talking about. Yeah, sorry, four. I don't know if I'm ready to put them there. Not because of any lacking that I've seen from the Packers as far as defense and how they played towards the end of last season. I think more so just experience from their quarterback Jordan Love. I would, reluctantly say that probably the Cowboys are in that 4 spot, perhaps even the 3 spot. Um, so your Packers are probably somewhere more like 5 or 6 in the NFC. But that doesn't mean we won't see them do some big things. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a matchup in the NFC Championship between the 49ers and the Packers, or the Eagles and the Packers, whatever that might be. So we shall see.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving right along then to the other thing. Trey mentioned them, the Cowboys. Jerry Jones got his man. Didn't have to go through that embarrassment of losing the receiver first before you lose the quarterback in the summer. CeeDee Lamb resigns with the Cowboys and now is the second highest paid receiver now, 34 mil a year. I think Trey, I think you start, right?
Might
Because
be
I
me, yeah.
started the last.
So here's the thing about CD, right? And for those who are paying attention, um, the Cowboys is a weird situation, and they have been for the last 5 to 6 years. Um, they have one of the most talented teams in the NBA. Again, this is coming from an Eagles fan. They have one of the most talented teams in the NBA on both sides of the ball. Um, they have one of the better receiving cores in the league. Say what you want about Dak, but he
You
is at least in
definitely
the.
tired. You said NBA twice, bro.
Did I say NBA? NFL, NFL.
NFL.
Um, um, and say what you want about Dak, but at least in particular in the regular season, he is one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Um, and yet you look at both of those players, CD and Dak, and you're like, okay, Dak's contract is up next season, and CD needed to resign. And the response I saw from Jerry was, we don't really need you to CD. And I'm paraphrasing there, but that's essentially what he said to CD Lamb. He was like, you are one of the best receivers in the league, but we can do without you. Clearly, Jerry, had to put his clearly somebody. It don't happen often, but somebody talked to Jerry and said, "Hey, Jerry, what you doing? We got to bring back CD Lamb. He has a case for being the best receiver in the league. Why would we not resign him? It'd be foolish not to. So we land here with them re-signing him, and now he's the second highest paid receiver in the league. So it makes sense to me. It should have happened way sooner than this. I think similar with the 49ers and Ayuk, that should have happened a while ago. Whatever the decision was going to be, with Ayuk, it should have happened a while ago. But this, I think, is different in that if I'm CD, I'm wondering if there's I would wonder okay, what now? What does the rest of the team think about him holding out, and what's his relationship with with Jerry? Because unlike other teams, there's other teams where the owner is very hands on with the team, but Jerry is in particular, historically is very very hands on with the team, and I can't imagine a scenario in which have CD back and the circumstances that led to him being re-signed. I'm wondering if there's any true animosity. Was it a reluctant signing? Did CD really get all the money he wanted, all the bonuses and all that type of stuff he wanted? And does he feel confident that the team won't just be like, next year we're not going to re-sign Dak? And now CD is stuck on the Cowboys for 4 years. Is it a 4-year deal, I believe? And doesn't know, now he's on a team with no quarterback in essence, right? So it's obviously a good signing to bring back arguably one of the best receivers in the league. But I think there's because of the controversy surrounding Jerry Jones' words as far as why they would or wouldn't bring him back. I have questions about the front office and CD's relationship with them, because if it's strained and you got problems with Jerry Jones, that doesn't bode well, you know. So that's my thoughts. Pass it off to Kylan.
Yeah, I think I think we alluded to this before, right? Even I've had some of our Trey knows this. We go to a church with a couple of Cowboys fans, and they were really worried, man. The Cowboys fans are really worried because they listen to this podcast because they know us personally. A lot of Cowboys fans in their life, and they were really worried, about this. But worry no more. They have CeeDee Lamb. They probably won't have a quarterback at the end of the summer once Dak gets on out. But at this point, Jerry Jones basically, you get to a point, every team does this. The Lakers got to this point, the Bulls got to this point where they had to decide Jordan or Pippen, Kobe or Shaq. And I'm not saying that Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb are at all four of those guys' level, but every franchise gets to a point where you have to choose, right? And in football, you wind up choosing a lot, which is why you need to cash in on the first 4 years, first 5 years of that contract. That's why for the Eagles, it was so pivotal, right? When they won that title, when Carson Wentz just getting his first round contract, and they were in their contracts and stuff were way more flexible, right? So when they won that Super Bowl, the pressure was off, right? So they could do what they wanted. That's why they could trade Carson Wentz and had not have too many people boo-hooing about it and stuff because they got the Super Bowl and everything else. We don't need to rehash Foles versus Wentz. Don't need to do that. Trey knows how I feel about that. We don't need to do that. But this is why it behooves NFL teams to win before their quarterback gets his second, essentially after the rookie extension, his first big superstar contract. And Dak's on his second superstar contract or third, about to be on his second superstar contract. So at this point, what this says to me is they chose CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons, a la Jimmy Butler, right? They chose CeeDee Lamb over you, Dak. That's what it is, Trey asked, how does CeeDee Lamb feel? I think CeeDee Lamb it gets to a point, especially with NFL players, that it becomes about you more than your teammates, right? Like, next, I think it's all but assured based on, what Dak Prescott's father has been saying, what his brother's been saying. It's all but assured Dak Prescott won't be there next year. So this is for all you Cowboys fans, this is the last dance, right? This is if there's going to be a year, and I hate saying it, if there's going to be a year where they come together, and maybe make an NFC championship game, it'll be this year because after that, they'll have to go draft a quarterback. So it's a whole thing now that and this is CeeDee Lamb, good for you, cashed in his money. Justin Jefferson just had to do a similar thing, right? Like, he's not sure that JJ McCarthy is the QB of the future, but he needs his money. Same thing with CeeDee Lamb. I need my money, I think I'm good no matter who we could be throwing him passes. I'm sure he would think I'm worthy of my 34 mil. So it's just one of them things. And I think the CeeDee Lamb, kind of like the Brandon Ayuk signing, the CeeDee Lamb basically says that it's over for Dak. They have chosen probably putting all their eggs behind re-signing and preventing the reunion that everybody, for real, even Michael Parsons, deep down in his soul wants. Trey knows what I'm talking about, him coming home and playing for the Eagles. So they have decided that they're going to pay Michael Parsons and CeeDee Lamb and say bye, bye, bye to Dak. So, NSYNC reference for y'all people who are too young to know what that is, and you probably didn't know who NSYNC. If you're really, really young, some of y'all probably didn't know who NSYNC was until you saw Deadpool. Spoiler alerts. But that's what it is, man. CeeDee Lamb is worthy of his money. I don't really know if he'll have a quarterback to give him good balls anymore after this season, but I think it's a good signing for the Cowboys. It's obviously sort of like Brandon Ayuk. He had all the leverage, and they didn't want to start losing games without CeeDee Lamb, along with Dak Prescott, obviously being quiet, but everybody knowing essentially that Dak Prescott is gone at the end of this season. So I think the Cowboys did a good thing for them, and I'll move right along. So what does this mean for the Cowboys? I think it says, like Trey said, they are, to me, the fifth team to trade the fourth team. This puts them firmly in fourth place. If something happens to the Eagles, Niners, and Lions, then maybe they'll jump to number one. But I just think the Cowboys are the Cowboys, and like I said, if there's any last dance energy going on in Dallas, or in Arlington, because that stadium isn't in Dallas, it's in Arlington. If there's anything going on in Arlington this year, this would be the year. I'm not saying this will happen, but if Cowboys fans have anything, because I know some of them hang on my every word, if you're going to at least get to a Super Bowl, this was probably the year. Just because after this you won't have a quarterback, so there's going to be some last dance energy going on. This would be the year. I don't think it's going to happen personally, but just to give some Cowboys fans hope, I think the Eagles and 49ers are too strong. I think they didn't even get past the Packers last year. But I mean, if something's going to happen, if something truly screwy happens, and they find a way to make it to the Super Bowl, this will be the year. Trey?
Yeah, no, I think we're right on the same page. I think this is. I don't know if I'm ready to say that they truly will not, but I mean, money wise, it's going to be difficult if they want to try to resign Dak at the end of the season. But you are correct in saying that this appears to be them choosing C.D. Lamb um, and Micah Parsons over Dak Prescott. The question is for the Cowboys, and this is not just for this season, is for the long term future of those guys because they're still young. C.D. Lamb and Micah Parsons is what's your plan at quarterback? If it's not Dak, which it very well may not be, what are you going to do? So there's that. But
they got Trey
but
Lance.
also
Trey Lance,
they do have Trey Lance, and that could be a potential answer. But he struggled with injuries in San Fran, and even the games where he played wasn't. We saw flashes, but didn't necessarily see the promise that we thought we would see out of college. But I think the other piece of that about, okay, now they're in a situation where it appears that they're choosing CD and Micah over Dak. They also have to think about this year, and they have to absolutely capitalize on this season, and try to make something happen this year, whether that is all the way to the Super Bowl, as much as I hate to say that, or simply an NFC Championship game. For those who don't know, the Cowboy fans know, they won't admit it, but the Cowboys have been irrelevant when it comes to playoffs for the last 25, maybe 30 years. They've literally only won 2 playoff games, I believe, in the last 25 years. So if there's any time to change that, it's this year, because you may very well lose one of the best quarterbacks in the game as a result of choosing a young receiver and a young linebacker. So it's a tricky situation for the Cowboys. They have to capitalize this season. Personally, I don't think that will happen. I think we're going to see the same old Cowboys. Whether they have they'll dominate during the regular season as far as putting up great numbers and stuff like that. They have a good record. I don't believe they'll win the division over the Eagles. I think the Eagles will take that. So they'll come into the wild card, and even if they get a win, I don't see them going anywhere deep into the playoffs. It's just simple as that because, well, I forget what the saying is, but in essence, when somebody does something over and over again, right, and you keep telling them, it's almost like insanity, right? The Cowboys have done the same thing over and over.
Of insanity.
Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, accepting a different result. And the Cowboys have done the same thing over and over again every year with the same result, which is no playoff wins and getting knocked out in either the first round of the playoffs or not even making it.
Usually by the 49ers, but last year was a different.
The Packers, right?
They got destroyed by the Packers. So, I just want to be clear because I don't want no Eagles fans at me. I said, I don't think Trey heard me say it. Y'all heard me say it once y'all get that emotion. None of y'all are reaching out to me, but I know later when I see y'all later this weekend, some of y'all will be like, "Why are you giving the Cowboys?" Listen, I said that realistically, I also don't think it will happen. But if there is a year where there can be a screwy Cowboys make it to an NFC type and the NFC Championship type year, it's this year because it's basically the last dance for Dak. Let me just say, realistically, I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Eagles, 49ers, and Lions are too strong. But we've seen screwier things happen. It's the NFL. It's a random team generator when it comes to people who make the NFC Championship game and the AFC Championship game. Outside of, it's always included in an Eagles matchup or 49ers matchup, and then a random team after that. So, or a Chiefs matchup and a random team facing them. So, and on the other side. So that's what I mean. Um, you know. So just to be clear, because I don't want no Eagles fans at me. I know I made some Cowboys fans really happy, but I realistically I don't see it happening. I'm just saying that there's some last dance, let's do it energy out there. This will be the year for it, So for the Cowboys. But moving right along, speaking of Trey Lance and QBs, Malik Willis. I know it's been a while since we said this name on this show, was traded to the Packers. By the way, what a weekend for Morgan to miss all this football at the top of this show. um, uh, Malik Willis traded to the Packers. My reaction to this is again, did I start or did you start? See, I'm tired too. Whatever, I'll start. Malik Willis. Um, you know, um, Malik Willis, great QB in college. Hasn't really translated to the NFL. I believe unfairly didn't really get a shot in Tennessee because right after they drafted him, they drafted Lord, their current QB out of Kentucky. Um, or yes,
Will Levis.
Will Levis. There you go. I had the first name. I was like, he shares his first name is my middle name, Levis. He's levitating out here. And levitated uh Malik Willis's job away, and now he's at the Packers backing up Jordan Love. Again, I think this says a lot more about Tennessee. We talked about Trey Lance, right? This is Tennessee admitting their mistakes, sort of like the 49ers did, that they drafted a QB way too early. They didn't have the system for him, so they sent them all the way over there to Green Bay. And again, what a situation for the Packers, right? Like, you needed a backup QB behind Jordan Love, needed somebody who could sit and learn the game. And, it was Jordan Love a couple of years ago, Aaron Rodgers, it was Brett Favre, and somehow you luck into Malik Willis. Like now you got Jordan Love, now you got his backup and Malik Willis, and I think this says more about Tennessee. I think they had no right to draft Malik Willis because they didn't have the system for him. They were in the middle of trying to win now with A.J. Brown and the rest of the things that they had in Tennessee, and they should never have put Malik Willis in that situation to try to make A.J. Brown happy and all the other weapons that they had in Tennessee. And this is them admitting their mistake, and I think Malik Willis will thrive in Green Bay. He won't have to start right away unless something happens to Jordan Love. And again, I'm not hoping that happens, but if anybody can prepare you outside of Philadelphia, it is the Green Bay Packers. I mean, like I said, just look at their success, right? Aaron QAnon Rodgers, Jordan Love, Malik Willis. We'll see. Will Malik Willis be added to the next like QB in waiting that Green Bay has going on, or will he mess it up? I think it'll be great for him to be in a situation, like I said, outside of Philadelphia. I think this is the best situation for Malik Willis, and I think that there are a lot of teams that are going to kick themselves for letting Malik Willis go to Green Bay. There are a lot of teams that need a backup QB, and I think this is going to be great for him. Like I said, I think this says a lot more about Tennessee, and we see that they are a poorly run, or I should say a poorly GM'd franchise. So, like I said, I think this says a lot more about the front office at Tennessee than it does about Malik Willis. I think he's a great player, even if he did play at Liberty University. Trey?
Well, speaking of Liberty, for those who don't know, my sister actually is now a student at Liberty. So,
and that was not a shot at
right.
Trey's sister or anybody that I know. For those of you that know, you know how Liberty gets down.
Yeah. Down in Lynchburg, Virginia. Take that. I won't say anything about that, but take that for what you will. No, I think it's a good sign. I mean, a good trade. Rather, I think unfortunately, as Philly fans, we've seen it time and time again that sometimes change of scenery is the best thing for a player, regardless of position, regardless of age. So I think this is an opportunity for Malik Willis to learn under Jordan Love and learn from Matt LaFleur. I think more importantly, because we know what he's able to do, from an offensive standpoint. I I don't think we'll see an like we're not going to see it unless fingers crossed. Hopefully, I don't jinx Jordan Love, but unless Jordan Love gets injured, significantly, I don't think you'll really see Malik Willis other than garbage time, perhaps. But I think coming out of this, I think he's perhaps still on his rookie deal. I could be wrong on that. I think this might be his final year because I think he's been in the league for 2 or 3 years. He's taken, I think he came in 2022, so this is his third
Yep.
year, I think.
Yep.
So
Third year.
so, and he was a first round pick, right?
Yep.
Right.
So
So
they
he's
can.
so he'll be coming up on the end of his rookie deal soon. He's kind of like halfway through approximately, and so it's kind of like I think for me when I'm looking at Malik Willis, the question is, okay, well, what's next for him? Because I think now it's learn, get better, um, learn under a good starting quarterback, learn under a good head coach, and just get better. And then I think long term for him, it's okay. Where is my future? And if I'm able to, maybe if the Packers do as well as we think they might do, there's some sort of, maybe even a first round bye or something, whatever might happen. That or maybe week what is it? What are we at? Was it final game of the season is week 18 now, I think, or week 19? They've
18,
added all
17.
these new games. I don't forgot.
It's
Um,
17 games right now.
but
It's gonna be 18 soon, but
right. Um, but for Malik though, there's going to be slim opportunities for him to kind of showcase. So hopefully he gets some opportunity here and there in garbage time, and then he proves himself even more. I mean, he played pretty well in preseason this year. So I mean, there's a reason why Tennessee was like, well, we got our QB of the future and we got our backup, and Mason Rudolph, and we don't really need Will Levis anymore, or not Will Levis. We don't need Malik Willis anymore. So let's make a smart trade, which they did to the Packers, and the Packers needed a backup. So trade makes sense. Hopefully, we'll see over the next maybe year or two what Malik is able to do with the Packers, and I'm looking forward. I think he'll be 27, 28 at the end of 2 years. So I think I'm more so looking forward. Like, okay, as long as he does his job as a backup, I don't see a scenario in which he doesn't get an opportunity afterwards to go start somewhere, perhaps depending on how things go in Green Bay.
yeah, I mean, the other thing for Malik Willis is depending on how things go, there might be an opening. There might be openings in Pittsburgh, might be an opening in Buffalo, might be an opening in the 49ers and San Fran. So he'll have his choice depending on what happens in, like you said, the next 2 to 3 years. So moving right along, just because we might not get to cover this depending on people's schedules and everything. So we're going to kick off these games in the next week. This week, preview them. Chiefs Ravens NBC game next week Thursday night. Trey, I'm gonna let you go here. Chiefs versus Ravens. What are you excited for? Preview this game for us, brother.
So for me, one thing I'm looking for. Last year we saw the Chiefs struggle early. So in my opinion, what I want to see is I want to see the Chiefs come out strong, and potentially dominate. We'll see. Um, we know we know what both of these teams are. For the most part, these teams have stayed intact, with the exception of the Chiefs recently losing Lord is Kadarius Toney. So
Morgan's least favorite Giant. Kadarius.
yeah, problematic, but it is what it is. But we also know, like, we know who the Chiefs are, right? They are one of the more, like, you're talking about from a betting or just like a predictability standpoint. We know generally what we're going to see from the Chiefs throughout the season, even if they struggle. But I would like for the Chiefs. I'm looking for them to come out strong out the gate, and maybe perhaps take home an early season win against a conference rival. And also, on the other end, you have the Ravens with Lamar Jackson, who I think, despite the fact that he's won 2 MVPs, gets a lot of disrespect. I think you have comments like, I don't like I like my quarterback to be, in essence, normal. I don't like him running around, from commentators saying that stuff like that last year. So I think also this is for the Ravens. I think this is an opportunity. I think every game for Lamar, it's unfortunate, but the case is that, like I said, people don't necessarily respect him as your traditional quarterback because of the nature of how he plays and how mobile he is. But I think this is an opportunity against a Chiefs defense that does have some holes, to potentially step up and have a good start to the season. So I think for me, this is I don't see this. I think this is going to go down to the wire. I don't think this is a blowout on either end. You got two of the best quarterbacks in the game, two of the best head coaches in the game, and I'm looking forward to it. I think it's gonna be a fun watch. And I think it might even be a lower scoring game than you might expect, knowing how dynamic either one of these offenses can be. Um, Sometimes when you have two high powered offenses that go up against each other, for whatever reason, sometimes you see a shootout, and sometimes both offenses struggle and you get more of a defensive game. And I think that perhaps might be what happens coming out of the gate. But again, if I'm either team, I'm looking to come out, as most teams are. But I think in particular for the Chiefs, I think it's important for them to come out strong to in comparison to last year, because what we saw last year from them was that they struggled, and then they kind of picked it up, and we saw what happened in the Super Bowl. But um, if you're in an ideal situation as a head coach, as a quarterback, you're looking for a relative consistency across the season. Um, so that's kind of my preview thoughts on this matchup.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm looking for Lamar Jackson. This is like, you never want to put too much pressure on a first game, especially one where, a majority of the time they didn't play in the preseason. This is really their first, for most of the ones, this is their first real NFL action. But I think Lamar Jackson, as you said, I mean, I'm not one of these people, but we'll get here in a minute in a few more segments about what NFL teams have the most are under the most pressure this season or slash have a lot to prove. I think Lamar Jackson has a chance at the first game too. He shouldn't overhype it, but has a chance to as most in the eyes of some people redeem himself against the God quarterback, right? Excuse me. You mentioned it before. Obviously, they didn't have Travis Kelsey. He picked up an injury during practice last season. That's why it looked so horrible. Obviously, they didn't have I hate saying it, but they didn't have Kadarius Toney. This season, coming into this opening game, the Chiefs are relatively healthy. So are the Ravens. Obviously, the Ravens are more healthy than the Chiefs because they don't have Philly Brown, which I know most of y'all don't really care about Philly Brown. Um, you know, but that's he won't be playing. But I think the Chiefs come in this game relatively healthy. Besides not having L'Jarius Sneed, which I think, as you said, big loss there. I think the Chiefs can be taken advantage of there. I think Lamar Jackson, he can use his legs and his arm to really kill the Chiefs. But I think it's always going to come down in these games, as it often does with the Chiefs and the Ravens. It really comes down to, can that Ravens defense, which again, we talked about this before a few weeks ago, or yet last week, Morgan and I brought this up to Trey off air that like this isn't the Ravens defense that we grew up with where you knew a lot of guys. Like I was just telling Morgan last week, like other than Kyle Hamilton, I have no idea who is on the Ravens defense. Like it's not Terrell Suggs, Ray Lewis, and Ed Reed over there anymore. It's not Calais Campbell anymore. It really is Kyle Hamilton, and that is it. It's never often that you know more of the starters on offense than you do on defense for the Ravens, right? So I think it's like I said, for the Ravens, it comes down to this. Lamar is going to be a superstar. He's going to do him. They put a lot into getting a new OC in there, getting somebody who can maximize Lamar's talents. So I think it's about can your defense stop the Chiefs? And I think for the Ravens, that's what they're gonna have to answer. Like, what is the answer to the God QB? Like, you know, are you going to blitz him? Like the Ravens are better than most teams. They have the personnel. They can blitz if they want to blitz. But, are you going to be okay with Travis Kelsey over the middle making your making your middle linebacker miss tackle? Like Is Kyle Hamilton going to follow Travis Kelsey? Like, you have if you're the defensive, I think the defensive coordinator is having nightmares for the Ravens right now because I mean, all you really have is Kyle Hamilton, and you're probably going to have to put him on Travis Kelsey. Like, and that after that, that was the problem in the AFC Championship game because at the end of the day, they had no answer for Travis Kelsey, and when they tried to blitz, um, the God QB Patrick Mahomes, like he carved them up like Thanksgiving turkey. So like that's the problem for the Ravens. But I think Lamar Jackson's going to be super. I think he's going to come in with some I am that guy energy. I think he'll probably take full advantage of the fact that there is no shutdown corner anymore in Kansas City. So I think that he will do something that he didn't do in the AFC Championship game. He'll use his legs, throw about 4 touchdowns, probably rush for 2 more, make you really happy if you're a Lamar Jackson fantasy football owner. So 6 touchdowns, but probably still find some way to lose to the Chiefs, and everybody's gonna be like, "See, Lamar can't get it done." But it's a team game, and I think Lamar Jackson is going to carve up that Chiefs defense. But I just think it won't be enough, as it often isn't against the God QB, Patrick Mahomes. Like I tell Trey all the time, and anybody who will listen, that like until I see somebody box with God, I will always pick Patrick Mahomes because the only other person I've seen box with him and win, but his team lose, is Jalen Hurts. So until I see that again on the AFC side, I think it's over. I think it's over for the AFC. I think, like I told Trey, I think the Super Bowl spot is the Chiefs to lose, and I think that barring some miracle or barring a 4 interception game, which we have seen before, but like barring a 4 interception game, that there's no way the Chiefs are losing this game to the Ravens, and I think Lamar Jackson will do his best to box with Patrick Mahomes and lose. So, but I think it won't be his fault. I think it'll be the fact that other than Kyle Hamilton, there's nothing on that defense. All right, so moving right along, unless Trey has something else to add. Nope. All right, so we move right along to the Friday night game on Peacock. So let me PSA for those of you who are Eagles fans that watch us. You will not be able to watch this game on main NBC. All right. I know some of y'all don't have Peacock. Get that Peacock subscription up. I know the Olympics happened. Some of y'all probably canceled it, but get that Peacock subscription. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to watch this game next Friday night. So let me help y'all out. Get Peacock. Or do what y'all do, borrow it from somebody. Like we should be putting this out there, but borrow it from somebody. So you need Peacock for this game. It's a Peacock exclusive, I believe. So yeah, so well, Trey let out the first one. I'll start here. Eagles Packers. I think of the 2 games that are opening in those first 2 days, I think this is going to be, and this is saying a lot because I just spent a lot of time talking about how great both Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson are. But I think this is going to be the best matchup of the first 2 games because I can't wait to see Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts go at it. I think the ultimately is going to come down to the Eagles defense versus the Packers defense. I think the Eagles have a better defense from top to bottom and a more deeper defense, and I think that they'll be able to blitz the heck out of Jordan Love, and I think that Jordan Love, he will use his legs, but he's more of a selective runner, more than Jalen Hurts, who prefers to do that first. But I think that Jalen Hurts will have, like I just said, Lamar Jackson's going to have one. I think it's going to be the reverse here, where Jalen Hurts will have an I am him performance and will remind everyone why he was the top MVP candidate for a large majority of last season. I think that, Jalen Hurts has been licking his lips, didn't play in preseason. I think it may look a little rough for the first series, as it often does for anybody that watches the Eagles. When the starters don't play the preseason, it looks bad, those first few series, but then it gets better. But this is under Kellen Moore, not under Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson. So we might see something different this year. But I think that, this game is the Eagles to lose. I think that, Jalen Hurts will show why there's levels to this. And I think that Jalen Hurts will primarily attack the Packers in the middle. I think you'll see, I mean, the biggest issue for the Eagles is Dallas Goedert. It looks like we don't know, but Dallas Goedert hasn't practiced yet. I believe he'll make the trip, but there's some things to sort out there with the tight end spot. as people often know, people knows that the Eagles offense, for those of you that don't know, right, if you're an Eagles fan or somebody that covers the Eagles like I do and also watch the game as a fan, like you know that for the Eagles, the offense looks way better with Dallas Goedert out there. Like a lot of people don't really like Dallas Goedert is like the forgotten man out there. But as Trey and I saw last year, like it went did this when Jalen Hurts, because Jalen Hurts loves his tight ends, right? When he does not have the safety blanket of a Dallas Goedert or another tight end, it looks bad. So because obviously they can triple team AJ Brown. Obviously, this might be where Jahan Dotson comes in, right? So somebody's gonna have to take advantage of the gravity of Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, and either that's gonna be Jahan Dotson, Dallas Goedert, or whoever the tight end is if Dallas Goedert doesn't play. I know he's dealing with a neck issue or a stinger. I know a lot of y'all remember this. That's what kept him out last year as well, a stinger and an ankle. So, we don't know if the Eagles will have a tight end number one um, on Friday night, but I think that's the biggest difference in this game is going to be which defense shows up, and I think it's going to be the Eagles because they have the better defense from top to bottom, and that's without bias here. So, I'm gonna pass it off to Trey, and I think Jordan Love will do well. I think he'll throw like 2 or 3 touchdowns, probably throw a few interceptions as he's prone to do, but I think Jordan Love is an up and coming QB, but I think he's going to lose this battle to the Eagles and Jalen Hurts. If y'all asked me to put a score, I didn't put a score on it last time. That's my bad. Didn't ask you for a score, Trey. But for this game, and I'm going to go back, I'm going to put this 30. I'm going to say Eagles score 35. I'm going to say 35-24. That's my score for this game. And for the Packers, for the Chiefs, Ravens, I'm going to say 28. No, 27-24 Chiefs. I think it's going to be a close game throughout. Uh, I don't know if that's the spread. I don't do the bets, but for you degenerate others, y'all can tell me later if that's the spread or not. 41, what was it? What I say? 51 for the Chiefs Ravens, and
Looks like the
I said
spread is
I said 35-24, so 49 plus for the Eagles. So y'all can let me
it's the Eagles is 40.5. Yeah.
know. Oh, so I'm
You
right
are.
on it.
Um
Go ahead, Trey.
but yeah, so for those who don't remember, I'm gonna go back a little bit and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the last time the Eagles opened up the season against the Packers was 2010. For those Eagles fans who are fans of the Kelly Green jerseys, we were wearing the Kelly Green jerseys, and Kevin Cobb was our starting quarterback, and he got injured. Um, and Michael Vick stepped in and almost won that game. I think the end score was like 27-24. Um, and in those preceding years, I think we played the Packers maybe 3 times. One of those was like a massive blowout. They blew us out, and then I think another one of those games was a blowout in our favor, in the Eagles' favor rather. I think this is going to be a good game. I think early, you mentioned it's typical for any team, really. Like sometimes teams struggle first 2 series or so, especially when all the starters haven't played or they haven't all played together in real time in the preseason. So I do think that there'll be a little bit of struggle early on from both teams, actually. Perhaps even a turnover or two. And I think by second quarter or so, early second quarter, maybe mid second quarter, I think you'll see the Eagles pull away, and I think ultimately the Eagles win. This is not unbiased. This is my unbiased thoughts. I agree. Defense is going to be key. What I also think is going to be key for the Eagles, or rather, I guess I should really say for the Packers, is who do they key in on, right? We know in football, there's this concept of in most sports, there's a concept of kind of, okay, we know we're not going to stop one particular guy. So let's let him get his and let's focus on locking up the backup or whatever the case may be. So for the Packers defense, their task is going to be, okay, who do we key in on, right, on their offense, outside of obviously Jalen Hurts. And I think that would be AJ Brown. So I think for them, that's going to be a struggle. We saw last year that they had a really, really good stretch, but if you really look at it, the Packers did not have a great defense. They don't have a lot of They don't have a lot of big names on their team defensively. Um, they've got some good young talent, but I think when you put that up against the Eagles' offense and their offensive line, you're looking at a young, inexperienced defense versus a very, very experienced and a very experienced Eagles offense that has a lot of chemistry as well. Like these guys, the number of these guys, particularly on the offensive line, have played with each other for 4, 5, 6 seasons in different capacities. So what I'm looking at is for I would if I'm the Eagles and I'm Kellen Moore, if I'm Nick Sirianni, if I'm Jalen Hurts, my focus is truthfully, I'm like, let's run the ball. Um, let's get the run game going. We got a new running back in Saquon Barkley. Let's get him some touches. Um, like I said, I believe that the Packers are going to try to key in on AJ Brown and try to double or maybe even triple team him. And I think that's going to account for maybe some of the struggles or the slow start perhaps early on. And but I think ultimately, if we open with the run game, which it would be smart in my opinion, I think as the game goes along and we get into that kind of second quarter, mid second quarter period of time, I think things will open up. They'll get into that play action. Um, Jalen will kind of be able to move around the pocket a little bit and get his legs under him. And I think from there forward, you'll see pretty much total dominance from the Eagles from an offensive standpoint. We know, like I said, from a defensive standpoint, and Kylan mentioned it, that they clearly have the better roster defensively, top to bottom. So that's what I see. If you're talking score, I think 35-24 is that's a good pick, Kylan. You were literally almost right on. I think the other thing before I give my score actually is I think the reason why I would say that they're going to struggle, both teams I think perhaps are going to struggle, is because they're in a new environment. For those who are athletes, and if you've ever played in a different stage, a different court, different arena, whatever it might be, sometimes there's just kind of this weird feeling around it because it's a new environment. You're not used to being there. Um, so I think that is going to account for some early struggles and kind of a slow start for the Eagles. Meaning, because for those who are not paying attention, the Eagles Packers game is not going to be in the United States. It's going to be played in Brazil. Um, so yeah, there's that. I think if I'm giving a score, I'm giving like I think this is like a 28-17 type of game. Um, Given that there's going to be a little bit of a slow start, if the Eagles are able to mitigate that any struggles early and come off strong, I think you're looking at like a 38-20 type of score. Not a complete blowout, but clearly dominance, in the back half of the game from the Eagles. And if you're looking at Ravens Chiefs, as I mentioned before, I think this is going to be more of a defensive game, actually. We're in a day and age where a defensive game might be 27-24, but I'm looking at more of like a 21-24 type of game. I think it'll come down to probably the last possession or so with the Chiefs and Ravens. I think you're correct, Kyle, in saying that Eagles Packers maybe is going to be the more exciting game. But I do like the matchup of the Chiefs and Ravens a little bit more actually than Eagles Packers. So there you go.
I was over here trying to find if you were correct or not. Looks like it was.
What?
Yeah,
Oh, and last time we opened the season against the Packers, I believe it was
yeah,
2010 or
yeah.
the 2010 season.
I think you are correct. It was 2010.
I remember vividly because for those Eagles fans who have long memories, there was a play that Michael Vick had where he scrambled to the goal line and he jumps. He almost did a Reggie Bush and reached the
Mhm.
ball out over the pylon. And that memory is kind of ingrained in my head in that game because it turned out to be actually a very, very important matchup that year because if you also recall later in the playoffs that year, we played them in the wild card. And gosh darn it, because of Brent Selleck stepping out of bounds and then stepping back in and catching the touchdown, we ended up losing that game with this, with Michael Vick at quarterback. So I always look forward to Eagles Packers.
Yeah, it's always a good matchup. I think this will be the first time in a while that it's played without that man that I mentioned before, Aaron Rodgers, for the first time in a while. Because I think the last time they played the Packers, it was his last year in Green Bay. But moving right along to wrap up this NFL part of the segment. As week one approaches, what NFL teams are under the most pressure this season? I can start here. I think so. I'm always going to say it's the Buffalo Bills. Trey knows I am fond of, like, I'm one of those people who a lot of people get upset with because I don't put Josh Allen where a lot of people think he should be, as right after Patrick Mahomes, because I just think he's got to prove it to me. He's got great talent. Obviously, he's a superstar. But it's kind of like the basketball argument. You could have all the talent in the world, but if I haven't seen you in a Super Bowl or an NBA Finals, then are you really that good? So that's how I feel. So I feel like for him, it's the Bills that are under the most pressure because I think it's only like I've said before. I think Josh Allen has about 2 or 3 more years left on his contract. This is why, if you heard me earlier, I have no sources on this, but I know that there will probably be a job into the 3 more years in Buffalo because Josh Allen is not going to be there because he looks around, right? He lost Stephon Diggs. He lost Gabriel and all the other big time receivers that they had, and now it's just tight end you over there, like, and him. So like I think, and he's dating. Who's he dating? He's dating the girl that's or was dating. I don't know if they're still are together. The girl who played what's her name? Junior Hawkeye. I hate calling her that, but she's Kate Bishop. I believe that they are still together. Um,
Haley Steinfeld.
Haley Steinfeld. So like, it's only gonna be like a few more years that Haley Steinfeld will be like, yo, I can't date a loser. So like, she's got, I'm not saying that she's that shallow, but I'm just saying that, like, Josh Allen has to like start beating he's got to start being even more competitive with Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. At least get to a Super Bowl soon. But I think he's a great talent. But I think it's one of those things where it's like what happened, to the Eagles, right, with Donovan McNabb, where Donovan McNabb's talent was just so great that they couldn't put any, or they refused to put anything around him other than stop me if I'm going too far. Freddie Mitchell, Todd Pixton. There was a time once they got drafted LaShawn McCoy, Deshaun Jackson, and there was another receiver, Macklin. Like, that's when it got better for the Eagles. But like before that, it was L.J. Smith, Chad Lewis, like Cornell Buckhalter. Like, when Deuce Staley was the second best offensive weapon that the Eagles had. Like, that's what I'm talking about, and that's what's going on in Buffalo right now. And I think Bills Mafia doesn't realize it, but that's what's going on. Like, when they lost Stephon Diggs, and that's why I said, like, Trey remembers me saying, and I said it last week. I know Bills fans don't like me saying it, but Brandon Ayuk was available, and all we heard was it was between the 49ers and the Steelers. Where were the Bills? Like, you've got Josh Allen, a generational talent that you are wasting. Even the Patriots did more for Tom Brady than the Bills have been doing for Josh Allen, besides drafting tight ends for him every other draft. Like, if I'm Josh Allen, I'm like, yo, what are you doing to me? Like, lost Stephon Diggs, lost his second best receiver. Like, there's a lot of pressure on Josh Allen, and some of it is deserved, and some of it is because of incompetence in the front office. Like, the GM needs to be fired because look at this. Like, it's either the coach, who's a former Eagles DC. It's either Sean McDermott or it's the GM. At this point, they both might need to go if the Bills don't have a disappointing finish this upcoming season. So I think it's the Bills. I'm gonna stop the diatribe right there if I go too much in on the Bills and Bills Mafia. I'm gonna leave it right there. Um, I think there's a lot of pressure on the 49ers just because, like I said earlier, you've got Brandon Ayuk. Now you have to justify the amount of money you paid him. Brock Purdy needs to throw him the ball. Debo Samuels isn't getting any younger. Neither is George Kittle. Throw Brandon Ayuk the ball, and maybe And maybe, just maybe, the 49ers' fortunes will change. I think there's a lot of pressure on the 49ers. I think that there is a lot of pressure on the Lions. I think the Lions have to prove it now. Like, you had a good year. I think Dan Campbell needs to not be Riverboat Dan, Big Balls Dan, whatever y'all call him in Detroit. He needs to, even Doug Peterson had to like learn how to keep it in check. Dan Campbell needs to learn how to keep it in check. Because I think that his like inability to like just take the win, take the points, cost the Lions last year in a game that I think we all agree, unless you're a 49ers fan, the 49ers, even the most ardent 49ers fan will say that like if it was not for that lucky catch, that the 49ers had no business in that Super Bowl. It should have been the Lions. And it's all because Dan Campbell couldn't, for lack of a better term, couldn't keep his urge to be aggressive in check. So Dan Campbell, you got to learn. Keep your urge to be aggressive in check. You got Jared Goff as your quarterback, not Jalen Hurts, not Brock Purdy, not Jordan Love, not Russell Wilson, not Justin Herbert, not Justin Fields. Like, y'all have Jared Goff. With all due respect to him, he had a great year last year, but y'all don't have like the superstar level quarterback that can bring you back in games. So those are my three: Bills, Niners, Lions. Trey?
Yeah, I think the Bills are up there. I think for them, I agree with you. It's been a little bit of ineptitude from front office in terms of being able to continuously build around him. I think they put some good pieces around him, generally speaking, but I think they could have done a better job. So I would say the Bills are up there. I would say I'm willing to give Josh Allen a little bit more slack because, unfortunately, similar to Phillip Rivers and how he had to deal with. I mean, Phillip Rivers had two Hall of Fame quarterbacks to deal with in the AFC, and Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. So I think there's a little bit of unluckiness on Josh Allen's part that he has to go up against a generational. I mean, I would say Josh Allen is in some sense generational, but Patrick Mahomes already might be, like a top 15 quarterback of all time, maybe even higher than that. Whereas I don't think Josh Allen is quite there just yet. He's more in that, like I said, Phillip Rivers camp, where he's one of the better quarterbacks of all time, but hasn't won anything yet. And unfortunately, he just keeps running into Patrick Mahomes and hasn't, for the most part, hasn't been able to get past him. So I think the Bills are up there. I think the Ravens, I think as a result of the pressure that I know Lamar Jackson is feeling, I think there's pressure on them as a whole team to make something happen this year. They've had very good teams for the most part over the course of Lamar Jackson's team. They've had a good coach. You might not be able to name all the players on their defense, but they've generally had very good defenses. So to me, they've got to make something happen this year. It's, in my mind, if I'm a GM or I'm a fan, I think it's inexcusable, as good as they've been the last couple of years, that they haven't really won anything yet. Same thing with the Bills. And I would throw the Cowboys in there because, as we talked about earlier, this is their win. Like, this is their win now year. Like, it's win or bust, right? Because we're looking at a situation where, unless something crazy happens with salary cap, they're probably not going to be able to re-sign Dak Prescott. So they are in like utter like win now or bust mode. And as much as I hate to say that, like I said earlier, this and Kylan said it too. If there's any year for them to to make a deep playoff run, now is the year. They have to try to make something happen. They have to make their own luck and do something this year. Otherwise, you're potentially dumping the careers of two really good players on the Cowboys, and CeeDee Lamb and Michael Parsons down the drain. So I'd say those are probably my two teams. And well, I'll give you a fourth. I'd say, I would throw the Steelers in there as well. I think maybe not as much as some of these other teams I mentioned, but I think with Russell Wilson and the defense that the Steelers have, I'm expecting not necessarily to win the division or go anywhere super deep in the playoffs, but I am expecting that team to be better. Last year they made it to the wild card, and they struggled in that game tremendously with Kenny Pickett at quarterback, who's now our backup on the Eagles. But I'm looking for Russell Wilson to kind of in some way come back to form and 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 improve that team, because they were, I think, 10-7 last year. So for me, if I'm Russell Wilson, if I'm the Steelers, who are perennial, for the most part, have been perennial winners and are, historically, I have, I think they're number one, I believe, in all time Super Bowl wins. Their aspirations are always get to the Super Bowl every season, especially with a coach like Mike Tomlin, who I think has never had a losing season. I think I can't remember how things played
Never
out
in
last
his
year.
career, you were correct.
So for me, if I'm the Steelers, the front office, the coaching staff, I'm like, if you look at the last couple of years, they've been hovering around that 50. What am I can't even think of what I'm trying to say. They've been hovering around that 50% win percentage. So yeah, I think I'd throw the Steelers in there too as one of the teams that have a lot of pressure this year.
Okay. All right. Well, moving right along then to college football. Colorado last night, college football. Well, for last weekend, but for all intents and purposes, for everybody else, it kicks off this weekend. Colorado versus Dakota State react. So Colorado barely beats Dakota State. Obviously, Travis Hunter three touchdowns. Shador Sanders, 4 touchdowns. Joe Horn Jr., a touchdown. So Trey, I think I started off last time, so this is on you, man. Colorado versus Dakota State. Your reaction is Colorado. Is this going to be the year where Colorado makes people like me look stupid for saying that Deion's all hype? Is this the year?
Perhaps. I think that they have a lot of growing to do. You're bringing back your quarterback from last year, and you have some talent that stayed. Obviously, I have a fair bit of talent that transferred. So for me, when I'm looking at Colorado, I'm thinking I am not necessarily expecting them to be, a top 10 team in the nation. Could that happen? Perhaps. For me, I think, and I don't think don't take this as me saying that. I think this. I'll say this in a general sense, but also as Colorado football. Like, don't take this of me saying like that you shouldn't reach for the stars. Have high goals. But for me, if I'm them, my goal is not get to the be in the my goal is not win the championship this year, because I don't think they're there yet. I think they've got some top tier talent. They can be there at some point over the next 3 to 4 years. But I think for me, what they should be focusing on is, okay, how can we win our conference this year, and be a top 25 team. That's the goal that you should have as Colorado, especially when no shade to it was North Dakota State, right?
Yep,
North Dakota State is a formidable team, so no shade to them. Carson Wentz went there, and they're perennial championship winners, and now they're over in FBS, but they were previously in FCS.
So did Trey Lance.
Right, Trey Lance went there, so they were perennial championship winners. So no shade on that team, but yeah, for me, my reaction to that game is, okay, good win. All right, but how do we improve next week? And how do we improve every week so that by the end of the season, as a team, internally and as outsiders looking in, that we say, okay, all right, Colorado's a good team and they have promise for the future years. Again, like I said, I don't see them being a top 12 team and making it into that playoff. Maybe they sneak in. I was talking with a friend of mine a couple days ago, and we were talking about how there might be some teams that sneak into that top 12 where you have a team similar to last year, like with Alabama and Georgia, where they were like 8 and they beat Georgia and jumped up to 4. So you could have a scenario like that with 12, right? Where you have, maybe a Colorado or another team like a Kansas or an NC State kind of, or maybe even a Utah is like hovering around that 12 to 15 spot, and they're able to sneak up into the top 12, perhaps. they're a very talented team, and so they have the capability of doing that. But for me, I'm looking at them as a top 25 team that's not a team to mess around with. Um, I think Dion has learned a lot over the last 2 years coaching, and hopefully, I think that translates into better coaching decisions and his ability to. We know that he knows how to build relationships with his players, right? That's bar none, right? He is just a very charismatic guy, knows how to talk. Um, but a key thing that's important for a head coach is, okay, how do I take that relationship that I have with my players and translate it into consistent, keyword, consistent success on the field? Because last year we saw they started off well, and then there was this long stretch of struggle, right? And so for me, that's if you're talking about his goal as a coach, his goal right now is to corral his head coaching staff and make sure that they're able to motivate the players to play consistently across injuries, across tough opponents, across weaker opponents, that they play consistently across the season. I think again, if Colorado was able to do that and play consistently, I see them as a top 25 team, maybe somewhere around the 20 to 15 mark. And maybe if they're able to exceed expectations, sneak into that 12 to 15 range and surprise some people.
Yeah, I think for me, I kind of called, as Trey remembers, people were yelling at me about why I was saying this, even though I was giving straight football analysis and numbers, and I turned out to be right. Like the team was all hype last year, and they fooled a lot of people by beating a weak TCU team. And I think that, obviously it was very a valiant effort by North Dakota State. They beat a team that, I don't think has won a championship since Trey Lance left. But, I am of the mindset that it looks relatively good for Colorado. Shador Sanders looks ready and very much an improved QB. Obviously, Travis Hunter looks like one of the best two-way players that we've seen in a long time. I don't know if he'll necessarily be doing what he's doing now in the next level if he leaves and starts playing on Sundays next year. But I'm of the mindset that the weaknesses that I saw in Colorado last year that a lot of people were blind to. I saw again last night. I saw their offensive line still having an inability to keep Shador Sanders up on his feet. I saw Shador making a lot of dumb passes, especially towards the end of that game. Again, the Detroit Lions fans will remember this. Like, in all honesty, they sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. Trey and I play team sports. We're both basketball players. We know we've had times. Any athlete has had times where they know they shouldn't have won that game. And last night was a prime example of a game that Colorado tried to lose. And if it was not for a phantom, DPI, they probably would have lost that game and had. And at the end, North Dakota State had a gripe too about the way they got a first down and the ref made the clock move, so they lost 3 seconds. It should have been 12 seconds that they should have had when they tried that Hail Mary, but they only got 9 seconds because stupidity on the ref's part. I know Trey doesn't want me killing refs too much, but in this case, this is ref stupidity. It's a rule in college football, not a rule in the NFL, that once you get a first down, which North Dakota State did do, the clock stops and you get a chance to reset. They would have spiked the ball, probably would have had about 12, 10 seconds left. And that's enough time to get a play to the sidelines and a better chance at a Hail Mary. So there was a couple of things that North Dakota State rightly has a gripe about. But I saw North Dakota State use, this is where I'm going to get real technical on my football knowledge, use I formation power for my CFB 25 players. Y'all know how powerful, and Madden players, y'all know how powerful the I formation is in video games and apparently in real life because Colorado couldn't stop it last night. So, I am of the mindset that, I don't, at the end of the day, I still see a team that is being held up by Shador Sanders and Travis Hunter. And if they are not God mode every Saturday, which there'll be times where they won't be, and just like we saw last season, it turned into a 4-8 team because Dion has not, for all of the hype behind him and how he constructs teams, he hasn't constructed a team that can survive if Shador isn't on, if Travis Hunter isn't on. Like, it's not a team that's built to survive that. And even though their defensive line, they brought in Warren Sapp, I don't necessarily know if Warren Sapp deserves to be a D-line coach. But like, I am of the mindset that I saw some good things, but I still saw them get dominated by, as Trey pointed out, a North Dakota State team that's really good, but is not, University of Kansas, is not a Baylor, is not a TCU. Like, just imagine what's going to happen to Colorado when they have to play Kansas, when they have to play Kansas State, when they have to play the Big 12 schools, when they have to play Cincinnati, when they have to play Houston. Like, for Colorado, I'll give it to you like this. I think that they'll at least win 6 games and be bowl eligible. I think they might end up 6-6, and I think a lot of people will call that a win. But to me, they can be a team that's either going to be 6-6 or 7-5, and might end up being 4-8 again because, like I said, besides Shador Sanders and Travis Hunter, there's nothing there. Like, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. Like, there's Joe Horn Jr., but if you don't have anybody to throw him the ball to, there's nothing there. So Colorado, good job. You did what you were supposed to do. You beat a North Dakota State team. Don't get too hyped up about it. You barely won. Like I said, if it wasn't for some stupidity, some stupid refereeing, you might have lost that game. And I don't know why, with about, what was it, a minute 30, 2 minutes left in the game, Shador was throwing passes. Do y'all not have a running back? What's wrong with y'all? Like, I look, I'm not a football coach. I know for a lot of Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Raiders fans, I just disrespected the god that is Warren Sapp. But some players are good at just that, being players. Not everybody's a great coach. Like, and I don't think that Warren Sapp has a whole season to prove me wrong. But from what I saw last night, I think that their defensive line and O-line is going to hold them back once again this year. So moving right along.
Good. I was gonna throw in, so as far as stats you mentioned, last time North Dakota State won the FCS championship, I think I misspoke before, was 2022 with Cam Miller, who's their quarterback now, because he started in 2020, so he's got that 5th year of eligibility. So
right.
2022 was the last time they won.
Yeah. So, and that to people that go to North Dakota State or North Dakota State alums, that's a drought to them because they were so used to winning throughout Carson Wentz's 2 years, and before that, they were a dynasty. But moving right along, the CFB Week 1 teams to watch. I'll start here. I think for me, I don't look at it with bias, but here I gotta be somewhat biased to my alma mater, Syracuse University football team. I've never seen a Syracuse team with more hype around it, and I was up there when the last time they went to a bowl game and beat West Virginia University, when they had like a dream, for lack of a better term, a dream team. But this might be the most hype I've seen around the Syracuse football team in a while. So I think Syracuse is the team to watch with a coach, Fran Brown, out of Georgia, former Georgia DC, and also straight out of Camden, New Jersey. So I think that there's going to be some toughness. I think Syracuse is going to be able to get some players that Syracuse might not be able to get on the football side. I think Syracuse is a team to watch this week. I think obviously you got to look at the new teams in the SEC, right? Texas and Oklahoma. How does that look? A la Trey to his favorite college basketball team. Florida, Miami, the Battle of Florida. Who's going to win that? Probably University of Florida. Probably. Even though Trey knows how much I love the U. The U is not the U anymore. But those are my teams to watch. Georgia, obviously. I think Georgia is going to be on a revenge tour this year because they definitely got screwed last year. Florida State already lost to Trey's new home, Georgia Tech. I know there was a lot of celebration in Atlanta last week for that. or I don't know. Maybe there was. Maybe I'm not in Atlanta, so maybe Trey can tell me if there was a live celebration or not. Based off that, I know Atlanta's more of Georgia territory than Georgia Tech, even though Georgia Tech is actually in Atlanta. Um, I that's those are my teams though: Georgia, Florida, Syracuse. I'm not picking any winners, even though I did just pick Florida over Miami. I think everybody who's not in University of Miami alum is picking Florida over Miami. So that's those are my teams. Florida for this week. Florida, Syracuse, Oklahoma, Texas. I want to see what Michigan looks like. Penn State's gonna beat the bejesus out of West Virginia. That's not a prediction. That's a spoiler. That's where I'm at with it. Oh, I forgot about the new Big Ten teams. I'm interested to see what it looks like with these new Big Ten teams. Oregon, Washington. Interested to see what those teams look like in the new Big Ten. Trey.
I'm actually, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned Georgia Tech. So I think Georgia Tech actually is going to be a team to watch this year. So their schedule early on is, I mean, if you're talking about their first 4 or 5 games, Florida State was their most difficult game, and they came out on top of that. They clearly dominated at the line of scrimmage. I was actually at the car dealership watching the game. I was getting oil change, and I was like, I was shocked because Georgia Tech is a D1 school, but you're correct in saying that Atlanta is really more of a Georgia team, unless you went to Georgia Tech or Georgia State. Because for those who don't know, University of Georgia is up in Athens, which is about an hour or so outside of Atlanta. But so I think Georgia Tech is a team to watch. I'm looking at their first 4 games, and this is no shade to Syracuse, but I think their first 4 or 5 games are winnable. They're very much winnable games. They have Georgia State tomorrow night. They have Syracuse the following week, and then they have VMI. For those who don't know, I don't know what VMI stands for, but
I'm gonna say Vermont something Institute.
I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I'm trying to like research it right now as I'm talking, but my point being, and again, this is no disrespect to Syracuse and
They'll probably end up being Virginia Military Institute. They'll probably end up being.
okay.
They'll probably end up being 3-1 at
Right.
worst.
I mean, even right at worst, even if they're not able to take that Syracuse win, I think you're looking at a team who at the very beginning of the season has a win against a top 10 team. I don't think that game was a fluke by any measure, but I think Florida State will still be a top 25 team coming into the season, and so I think that win will stand the test of time come the end of the season. That win will hold a lot of weight. So that's why it's everybody knows in college football season it's always important when you got those big games early that you win those games, and Georgia Tech did that. So I mean, I can't their back half of the season is much more difficult. They've got Duke, UNC, and then they got Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, then they got Miami, NC. Their last 3 games are Miami, NC State, and then Georgia. So they got a pretty difficult back half of the season, but I wouldn't be surprised just overall in the season. And then this week, I think in their game against Georgia State, like I'm looking at them as a team that nobody really expected to do anything this season from a top 25 standpoint. I think I'll also throw Notre Dame is ranked up there at number 7, but I think Notre Dame might actually surprise us and do a little bit more than we think. Notre Dame has been, historically has been a very good team. I could be wrong, but I believe their starting quarterback might be a senior. I could be wrong there.
Is it not Sam Hartman again?
No, sorry, it's Sam Hartman. So,
did it change? Because I thought last year was his last year. But
well, no, sorry, it's not Sam Hartman. My bad. I'm looking at it's.
I think he had a COVID. I was about to say I think last year was the last year of his COVID eligibility. So
yeah, I don't know why their roster is not showing, but I believe it's this guy Steve Angeli. So
you keep talking, I'll let you know.
But I think they are going to surprise some people and kind of shake some things up in that top. I think overall though it's going to be an interesting season because now, for those who don't know, we're going to be at 12 teams in the playoff now.
It's Riley Leonard.
Riley Leonard.
He beat out He beat out Steve Angeli.
and he is a senior if I'm reading this
Yeah.
correctly.
Yeah.
So you got a veteran quarterback, already ranked high. I think their opening game, let me see,
Texas
is
A&M.
Texas A&M, so that should be a good game. But if you're looking at their next, 4 or 5 stretch of games, they end up playing Georgia Tech later in October. But like, they don't have this like super difficult early schedule. They have Florida State later in the season. They have Navy in October, and then towards the end of the season they have USC. So for me, I'm just looking at schedule wise, right? This is no indication necessarily of how those opponents will perform over the season. I think those two teams are like you if you start off like if Notre Dame's able to win early against a good team, there's no reason why,
Yeah,
unless you
they
have a
always
scenario like a Colorado where things don't stay consistent and everything kind of dips off, that these two teams won't surprise some people.
they always find a way to hype Notre Dame and overhype them at the same time. So I definitely think that there's already that there's this in no particular order. They're gonna find a way to make sure that Georgia, Alabama, Notre Dame, and Michigan make it. After that is it's up the other 8 spots are up for grabs. So that's and that's no shade to the NCAA or the selection committee, but we all know that's how they rank them in no particular order. Right there, that's the college football brands right there. That's the ones that you care about, and maybe put Texas, Oklahoma, Penn State, whichever one ends up being third place in the Big Ten in there too. But moving right along, because I have no disagreement with what Trey said. It's rare that like I actually can agree that Notre Dame is like not a team to watch, even though everybody overhypes them. um, House versus the NCAA settlement talks hit a snag. So this week it comes out that there are, to answer my question and Trey's question, apparently a couple of players unions already in college sports. So there are players unions that are revolting against it. So for those of you that don't know, we've been talking about this for at least probably like 3 or 4 months now about this House versus the NCAA settlement talk. First, it was the I don't want to even call them lesser conferences, so just the poorer conferences.
The non-power five.
Yeah, the non-power five were upset because they had to pay the majority of the money of these athletes from the settlement that were coming from, the Big Ten, the SEC, the ACC, the Big Four, right? And so then the NCAA kind of got them together, basically saying, you're going to pay for it and like it. You had a bunch of these smaller schools saying, I think one president said this week, essentially what a very very much a more politically correct way of saying what Marshawn Lynch said. I'm just here so I don't get fined. I think what that president said was, I don't like it, but for the good of the game, we have to take it. So essentially, they basically told the NCAA basically told these poor these non-power conferences to bend over and take it. That's essentially what they told them. So probably in a less cleaner way than I just said that, but that and now these players unions are saying, because like I said before, like Trey has said before, the NCAA is trying to have their cake and eat it too, and like Morgan has said before, that they basically want to put a cap, essentially do what the NFL does, put a cap on money, right? So like non-collegiate athletes who have been on campus like Trey and I, who can make unlimited money, do what we want to do. We have no cap on our finances during the 2 to 4 years you're on a college campus. But what they want to do is cap these athletes' pay so that, they have a cap on what, Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark are gone, but they have a cap on what Livy Dunn makes, right? Or a cap on what Jordan Childs makes. A cap on what the Olympians make, a cap on what, just there are a lot of swimmers, right, that have come from the Olympics and are going back to their college campus, a cap on what they make for their NIL money. And so these players unions are basically saying, essentially their argument, and there is no argument against this, is we live in a capitalistic society. Why are the House lawyers basically trying to allow for the NCAA to limit what these players make? And so there are 2 other lawsuits pending. One is the Ivy League versus, I forget the player's name. I know Trey is about to look it up now. But essentially, that's a lawsuit from an Ivy League athlete because for those of you that don't know, in the Ivy League they don't give you a sports scholarship. It's either an academic scholarship or your parents pay for it. That's essentially what it is in the Ivy League. So, the Ivy League, playfully, I say the Ivy League are smarter than the rest of us non Ivy Leaguers, right? Trey's laughing because he's got a few Ivy Leaguers in his household. So there are like that's the joke that I say a lot, but that's one of them. And then I believe there's another lawsuit which is also about NIL money. I believe in the SEC. So those two were not
If
being
I'm reading
joined
this
by
correctly,
that
it was Howard. It was Harvard.
Harvard. So yeah, Harvard versus the NCAA. So like yeah, there's a couple of lawsuits that will not be enjoined by this. I know I'm getting real legalese here. This is where Tracy's my lawyer come out. So for those of you essentially, so what's happening here is players are bad because, like I said last week, somebody apparently set these football players and basketball players down and said, "Look, you're ruining our money." So now these players' unions are coming out because we are seeing now a bunch of the soccer girls have come out and said that the most famous example was a Penn State soccer player who, because they've capped the scholarships now in anticipation of this from 30 to 28 in women's soccer, she lost her chance to play at Penn State, and I think she's a junior or senior. So now she has to either pay the money to come to college or find another school and transfer. And there are a bunch of other players at other big name soccer programs all over the country saying the same thing. So, I think my reaction to this is that it's good. I think it's good that these players, like I said last week, that these other athletes that are in these non-revenue generating sports / Olympic sports need to sit their football and basketball more their football counterparts than their basketball counterparts down and say, hey, we need y'all to get behind this union because even though you only going to be here from 1 to 3 years, the rest of us need to have some money since we're in sports that don't let us leave after a year or two. Especially if you are a women's basketball player, a track player, a lacrosse player, you kind of have to stay. So, I'm glad that this is happening. My reaction to this is good because I don't think that the NCAA, basically the NCAA, as Morgan has said, as Trey has said, like they're trying to keep alive because they know that once the NCAA goes away, which is about to happen anyway. I have no sourcing on that, but just the way they're fighting kind of lets you know that they know their time is coming to an end. That is going to be the wild, wild west in college athletics. So, they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. And, you just can't have that. And then I'm glad that these unions are starting to come up. I said last week that these athletes need to get together with the NBA Players Union and figure out a way to form one big collegiate players union. And I'm glad that that is starting to happen. And I'm glad that because I never thought it made sense for the NCAA to try to keep on regulating these college athletes and what they make. They need to make as much money as they can because some of them won't be playing on Sundays, won't be playing Monday through Sunday in the NBA, won't be playing in the MLB, won't be playing in the NHL, won't be playing at the Olympics, won't be doing all of that. I don't know what just happened to Trey, but I'm sure he's coming back. So I think it's great that they have all that, and they need to they need to do what they need to do to keep that back. So moving right along until Trey. There he is. Uh, what happened, bro? So yeah, I'm gonna let you go.
No
So yeah,
idea.
so I'm gonna let you go. So like I said, I think it's great that these players unions are stepping up, and I hope that there's a larger collegiate athletics players union that comes out of this, so these players can continue to make their money. But now I'm gonna turn it over from the person who wanted to be a lawyer to the accountant who actually counts people's money. So go ahead.
Yeah. So this is a situation where, essentially, what the NCAA is, and you can quote me if you want to, but don't come after me. Um, the NCAA is essentially trying to union block. Um, so a number of things, like what Kyla mentioned. So first, one thing that this settlement would do is it would cap the NIL deals, but the other thing is it would prevent players, um, regular player collective bargaining, to bargain as the major pro sports have to collectively
Collective bargaining.
bargain
Collective bargaining.
for better deals when it comes to
Yeah.
contracts and the like. In this case, for NIL deals. Um, so on one hand, I'm very much in favor of unions. For those who don't know, and Colin mentioned, I'm a filmmaker. I live out here in Atlanta, and while some may not be fans of unions, there obviously there are downsides in certain cases. But the idea of a union is that if ran well, that people are getting paid fair wages, right? And that amongst other things, that there's safety. Safety is kept in mind. But the big thing is, and it's fitting that we're talking about this, given that it's Labor Day weekend, but that people ultimately are paid a fair wage, right? So in this case, you have a large group of players in the NCAA who, for decades and decades, right, have never been able to profit off of what essentially is their product on the field or the court. And the NCAA reluctantly in recent years has allowed NIL deals to happen, but it's clear that there's a reluctance to allow them to unionize, because they know if there's unionization across the board, and when I say across the board, I mean across, not necessarily across all conferences, but across all sports, that that's out. That's it doesn't clearly the NCAA is not in favor of that, from an economic standpoint. Um, and the other thing is to keep in mind is that right now, my understanding is that essentially, the lawyers of the NC, or rather of the House, essentially have got a lobby, essentially, right? So that's what's going to happen. You're going to have individual players step up, file suits. You're probably going to have individual colleges step up and file suits, more than what we've seen already. Um, and I think what's going to be key, and Kylan mentioned this, is these non-major sport athletes, and this is no disrespect to, but if you're talking about the major professional sports, when it comes to the United States, you got basketball, football, baseball, soccer. For those who don't know, actually, side note, soccer has always been probably the largest global sport, but for those who don't know, soccer is actually making a real push here into the United States as far as being one of the larger sports here. Typically, it's not viewed as one, but that is happening. So that aside, if these non-major sport athletes, like you mentioned, Colin, your track and field players, lacrosse, and probably women's basketball as well, lacrosse and field, all these other, in a lot of cases, at least with the Power Conference D1 athletes who aren't necessarily getting the benefit of these NIL deals, there has to be some lobbying on their part, because these NIL deals are very important. I think one of the biggest examples of that is with the WNBA. I think what that has done for the sport of, in particular, professional women's basketball, but college women's basketball as well, is that it's creating like stars before they even get to the pro league, right? And you might say, oh, well, there's problems with that. I mean, there's problems with and with any good thing, there comes along certain negatives. There's always pros and cons of certain things, but at the end of the day, the key thing here is that these athletes deserve to make money, because the universities and the NCAA is profiting massively off of these players. And by and large, the majority of college athletes are actually not really making any money off of their own likeness. You have examples like, I'm blanking on his name, Donald. I'm blanking on his last name, but was a kicker. Goes back like 5 years or so. Was a kicker at UCF. Basically got kicked, lost his scholarship as a result of doing YouTube. You have examples like that too. Now, where there are players who would have made millions or thousands of dollars as a result of their play on the field, and they can't or no longer can. Um, at the end of the day, I am definitely in favor of unionization. It's only in this scenario going to help. This is not like this is no shade to teachers unions, but this is not a teachers union situation where you end up with, we've seen it before. Where you have teachers who are in a union or they have tenure, and there's some, dipping off of production. I'm sure Colin has probably seen this in his time working in the school district, but it's to me it's foolish of the NCAA to try to block this, because ultimately they're in the minority almost when it comes to like who wants this to happen. And also a key thing, and this is the last thing I'll say, is what's important to think about too is on a state by state basis and from a federal government standpoint, it's also important who your local officials are and who the president is. Because if you have a president who's not strong on labor and strong on union, strong as far as their support or non-support for unions, that would also impact what happens here with this House versus NCAA settlement. So we'll see where things go. I'm hoping, and I think things will turn in the favor of the players. So
Yeah, all right. I have no disagreement with that. So what does this rebellion mean for the settlement? To me, it means the settlement is DOA, but I'm sure the the NCAA will find a way to try to wrangle it up. And again, just to cover myself, I know I said bend over and take it, but every time we say something half jokingly, I just want to make sure, because I know there's people who listen and will hear me say bend over and take it. I am not making light of rape culture or anything that happens to anybody who may listen or later listen to the show that may have gone through that. Obviously, I'm not making light of it, but just for a lack of a better term, right? Bend over and take it, because that's what some of us say a lot when it comes to stuff that we don't want to take, right? So again, not trying. No one's contacted me about it, but just to cover myself, I'm not making light of any type of sexual assault or anything that may or may not have happened to anybody, male or female, in this world who may come and listen to this podcast later. So let me just say that. But to cover this, to finish this seg up, yeah, I think it means it's DOA. I think that the NCAA has to figure out. Essentially, they're trying to, as Morgan has said and alluded to, they're trying to fight for survival, and I don't think there's any way to survive uh, now. Big money coming from under the table to being. I think a lot of people now are realizing that there has been a lot of money in college sports for a while, because I see a lot of people, young and old, say, man, what happened to this college sports I love, man? I just want to see UConn, Villanova, and Syracuse going at it again in basketball and football. Why can't that happen? Why is money in the way? Well, money's always been in the way. I mean, like I said, you think people are going to Tuscaloosa, Alabama for their health? Like, you think people are going to Athens, Georgia to play football for their health? Like, I've never been to Athens, Georgia, but I'm going to say that probably like Penn State is probably the middle of nowhere, and no one outside of going to college probably wants to live there. Trey can correct me if I'm wrong, but it kind of seems like it's the middle of nowhere. Like, no one's going to, shout out the other half of my family, no one's going to the University of Arkansas for their health. Like, no one's going to Shreveport, Louisiana to play basketball, do gymnastics, run track at LSU for their health. For those of you who think people weren't getting paid under the table, you think Sha'Carri Richardson was going to LSU for her health? Come on now. You think a silver medalist was going to LSU for their health? Like, everybody was being paid under the table, even before Trey and I were born. Like, people were getting paid under the table. So this is DOA. This is just the NCAA trying to stay alive. Shout out to the old song, staying alive. This is the NCAA trying to do that. Go ahead, Trey.
no, I'm in agreement. This is them trying to stay alive. I agree with you that this settlement is probably done with. But again, as I meant, one of the last things I was saying before was, what's also important to take into note is, because this is a political issue as well, is what who's the question is who's fighting on the player side, and how strong of a case are they able to make, and then on the NCAA side, how strong of a case are they able to make against unionization amongst NCAA and NCPA? So yeah, I'm in agreement.
Okay. Moving right along to the biggest rumor that happened after the show last week. UConn might be leaving the Big East for the Big 12. And our reaction to this, obviously, we don't have the biggest UConn fan in the world. She's in Nashville right now. And, like I said, she'll be here hopefully next week to react to this. But I think, like I said, this is a function of UConn trying to stay competitive. UConn wants to be a football power so badly, and I think they just need to lean into the fact that they are a men's and women's basketball power, and sometimes a soccer power. And football isn't the end all be all for every school. Um, so if they do go, just to cover for UConn fans that listen to this, who are worried, they will stay football independent. The Big 12, this is more about adding a basketball powerhouse, because right now in the Big 12, the basketball powerhouse is really just Kansas, you know. So, and obviously they just lost Oklahoma and Texas. So they need some more basketball powers. They do have Houston. Let me not disrespect Houston basketball, because it was just in the Final Four last year and the last few years. So they have Houston. They have Baylor, who has won a national championship recently as well. But this is more about basketball and everything else. This is kind of like what happened with Syracuse, Pittsburgh, Boston College went on to the ACC from the Big East originally. So, but this is when you kind of looking at it saying we won a lot of championships. We do have this new TV deal with NBC, Fox, and TNT pending on the Big East side. But, the Big 12 has more money. There's one less power conference now without the Pac-12. We'll see about the ACC. But I think this is more about that, and I think UConn leaving for the Big East for the Big 12 is a dumb move. But I think like if UConn in men's and women's basketball can dominate the Big 12, then it's all worth it, because this is more about basketball and the money. Even though Trey mentioned politics before, I don't believe in trickle down economics. I think it's the biggest falsehood ever in politics. But in this case, they're hoping that the basketball money from both the men's and women's basketball program trickles on down to every other sport, and they probably wouldn't be able to make this bet in the Big East where they can in the Big 12. And just to obviously these presidents and stuff, the representative from the Big 12 bet were representatives of UConn. It's not close to happening as of this recording right now at 8:35 Eastern time on Friday night. So I want my UConn fans to calm down. I'm not reporting anything. I know there are sports fans listening to the show and take what we say as gospel, but I have no sources on this. I am not saying that UConn's going to ditch the Big East for the Big 12 in a few minutes or a few hours. Don't know that, but I think it's far, but I think that where there's smoke, there's fire here. And I think if UConn's trying to dip for the Big East, they should be trying to dip to the ACC, because to me that makes more regional sense, because you got Syracuse, Pitt, and Boston College in the ACC. But maybe they're looking at what's going on with Florida State and Clemson and probably saying no. And they're probably like not at the time period right now where they can wait to see what happens with FSU and Clemson. But I think this is what it's looking like now that money. See, money is just like dipping its toes and being in college sports, and you're seeing what's happening. Texas, Oklahoma dip into the SEC, obviously Washington, Oregon, and USC and UCLA dipping from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten. So this is what's going to happen, folks. This is money. This is what happens. Trey, this is
Yeah,
right up Trey's
I
alley.
think it's probably a money decision. I don't think it quite makes sense. Um, because basketball wise, like the Big East is pretty formidable, right? Like you got teams like who's in there. So you got Xavier, Villanova, Seton Hall, Georgetown, Marquette.
Right,
I'm forgetting Butler, right? So
but
like
But I think
you got
what they're looking at is like in the Big 12, you've got Houston, Baylor,
well, yeah,
Kansas,
no, I agree with you,
in
but it's like
comparison to like where the most recent, national title contender in the Big East is Villanova, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
Marquette in
right.
comparison to
Um,
Kansas, Baylor, Houston. I have no idea. I haven't. It's not like I've talked to the AD of UConn, but I'm imagining that the money's going to be better if they keep football out of it, and eventually
I
football.
agree that because the thing is, UConn has never been a football powerhouse in any stretch of the imagination. If you look at the Big East, a number of these teams have formidable football and basketball programs. You got teams like Baylor, um, got teams like UCF, um, Houston, Kansas, and Kansas State, TCU, right? Who generally speaking have fairly formidable basketball teams, and in a lot of cases, sometimes with TCU, potential championship contenders when it comes to football. So it's odd. I think there's a chance that some of the money kind of funnels down to football, um, because obviously it's a larger conference, so you potentially see a larger endowment overall. But I don't know. UConn,
Trickle down.
it would if I were looking at UConn and I said, oh well, UConn has a relatively formidable football team already, and now they're just moving to a different conference where that's the case for the majority of the teams. I'd be like, okay, but the idea of them moving from Big East to Big 12, knowing that they are by and large a basketball school with no real promise when it comes to football, I don't know. We all know though that the Power Five conference teams, the teams at the top of those at the top of those conferences, often schedule easy games throughout the course of the season, and people ask themselves, why would so and so school play Alabama, knowing that they're gonna get blown out 60-0? Well, the answer is that that small school is going to make a lot of money off of playing. So I think there's that as well. I think UConn is thinking not necessarily there's going to be trickle down, but that they're going to get some games because they're a larger D1 school, that they're going to be able to get some games against some premier, um, some of the more premier Power Five conference teams, and they're going to make some change off of that. So regardless whether it's a trickle down thing, whether it's a basketball decision or football, it's a money thing at the end of the day. So
That's
I think
right.
we're in agreement on that.
That's right up your alley. So yeah. So what does this mean for UConn? Like we said, it means they're thinking a lot. I think somebody really sold UConn on winning a national title in basketball and men's and women's basketball in in the Big 12 in comparison to the Big East with all of those brands. Obviously, we know all about the Baylor men's and women's basketball program. Kansas is on the men's side than the women's side, but they're up and coming women's basketball team as well. So I think it's more about ball than it is about football. I think it's more about ball and everything else. But I think this just means that UConn is looking around and thinking like we missed the boat the last time the Big East got purged the last time for where Syracuse and them went to the ACC, and they're not trying to miss the boat this time. So I think that, and like Morgan would say, they won the last two national titles in men's basketball. So as Trey and as anybody with sense would say, strike while the iron's hot. Right? It's never been hotter for UConn. Like so they are a valued basketball brand, and I'm sure the ACC is kicking itself because I mean, the ACC did this first. So so moving right along to more women's basketball. Oh, the Indiana Fever beat the Connecticut Sun, a top two team, I think, in the rankings and in our rankings and the top teams in the W. So, I mean, what can you say? I mean, the Fever right now, since the post Olympic break, are 7-2 right now, with some big time wins over Seattle and the Connecticut Sun. My reaction to this is good. Caitlin Clark and them got a break, and it seems like it's all come together. I still think coaching is going to hold them back because I don't think Christy Sykes is a good coach, and I think that she needs to lose her job at the end of the season. But I think that the talent of Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston, now that they've all figured out how to play with each other, uh, can take them far. And as it just showed, because they beat the Connecticut Sun. Now it looks like the Connecticut Sun had an off day, had an off night, which tends to happen. But at the end of the day, the Fever beat the Sun. To kind of preview the next question, I think they can ride this to playoffs, but I think that they'll be out in the first round. But that's where I'm at with it. Great for Caitlin Clark. Great for Kelsey Mitchell, a soon-to-be free agent. Great for Aaliyah Boston that she's getting some wins and stuff, and may have a chance to be in the playoffs. So really good for all of those players involved, and they're making the Fever a destination, and they might not end up having a top 10 pick, which they might regret come this year, but we'll see. The season is still young, and I think I'm leaning more now that they will make the playoffs, but and I think that the season is ups and downs in the WNBA, and I think they're now in their up and the down is coming. But what the down looks like, I don't know. But I think that I'm leaning towards them now being a first round exit in the playoffs. But Trey,
No, I think it's every once in a while a team that nobody expects to win something, win a game, they come out on top. I mean, that happens in all pro sports. And it varies from sport to sport, the level of parity. Um, I wouldn't say it's a fluke. I think clearly the Fever have kind of found a little bit of a hot streak. Speaking of hot streak, um, current game update for the Fever and the Sky games, I believe the Fever are up, 57-46,
okay,
and with about a little under 8 minutes left in the third quarter. Um, I think the Fever can make a run. They have, you got one of the best shooters in the game, and probably, it's either her or Angel Reese probably when it comes to Rookie of the Year. So yeah, I think they can make a run. I think they got two or three like very very talented players, and if this run continues, I think they have about 10 or 11 games left. I think there's about 35 or 40 games in the regular season. That they can make a little run. I'm not expecting them to be any sort of like Cinderella team, but I do see a case where they could make a little run in the playoffs. I think it bodes well for them going forward in terms of, okay, well, we did this last year, or we had that little spark towards the end of the season and things didn't end the way maybe we would have liked to, but okay, next season now expectations are higher, goals can be higher. But I think the downside, and this is where the front office conversation probably comes in, is does it make sense to try to continue to push? And typically you don't see tanking in WNBA, but if they make this push and they end up, winning like, 25 games or something, or 20, somewhere between 22, 25 games, and they're a team that's, a lower seed, but they make the playoffs. Now they're in a situation where they're not going to get a top tier pick, right? Which I would argue they need. And frankly, I haven't paid attention too much to their coaching. But you're also looking at that too, right? When you're thinking of, right, who is she going to get fired or what happens, right? Because if they continue on this little run and they make a little splash in the playoffs, now you're looking at her and saying, well, does she still get fired? Is it a Mark Jackson situation where you let go of a coach who's had, well, I guess in this case, actually, I guess it's quite the opposite, actually. Haven't done so well with a team, and then finally kind of has, some success. I don't know. Will the Fever continue to make a run at the playoffs? I'd have to. I think I put it this way. For me, anything in sports comes down to schedule and how hot you truly are. So if I were to look at their schedule and say, okay, they've got they got a relatively easy schedule, or they don't have as tough as a schedule as they could have, or they've got a number of home games or whatever the case. Like, and I'm just pulling up their schedule now. It looks like they've got, I think after tonight's game, it looks like only 2 of their games are away games. So they have a chance to, continue winning and sneak into the playoffs and do something.
All right. Moving right along, then top teams in the W. My top two is still unchanged, despite the fact that the Fever just beat the Connecticut Sun yesterday, or I'm sorry, on Tuesday. I'm of the mindset that it's still the Liberty, the Connecticut Sun, the Storm. I kind of the Aces have dropped off for me since their recent losing streak, so I'm still going with Liberty, Connecticut Sun, Storm, and the Minnesota Lynx continue to just look good, man. I think that that's my top four right there. Liberty, Sun, uh, Lynx, and Storm. In no particular order. Trey.
I think I'm in agreement with that mostly. I think I would put the Sun just slightly over the Storm. But I think, yeah, I think if you were to look at the standings, I think that's probably about the right order for your top four. Um, although I don't know that you can quite count out the Aces, despite, like you said, their their struggles over the last. It looks like from the standings, they're 5-5 in the last 10. Um, but yeah, I would say definitely Liberty, Lynx, Connecticut Sun, and it's between the Connecticut Sun and the Storm. It's kind of like neck and neck. All right, maybe even like a three-way type of thing where, I mean, record-wise, the Storm and the Aces are closer in record, but um, those top like five teams are, or between those bottom three teams and the top five, between this Connecticut Sun, Storm, and Aces, it's going to be a tight race. The Connecticut Sun are a game or so up, but we'll see. I think no doubt though the Lynx, Liberty, and Sun are the top three, and it's a toss up between the Storm and the Aces.
All right, moving right along as we enter our final couple segments here. Steph Curry, he's in that over 30, I think it's 35 rule. He signed a 1 year extension for about $63 million. Should keep him there for the next 2-3 years in Golden State. And my reaction to that is good. I think that I couldn't imagine him not being in a Golden State Warrior uniform after all this time. He kind of grew up there. We watched him grow up as a player there. So I'm really happy for him, even though I would have loved to see that pairing of Joel Embiid and Steph Curry together. We know it probably wouldn't have happened, especially with Tyrese Maxey being here. But I'm of the mindset that that's good. I couldn't imagine Stephen Curry in any other uniform besides in my fantasies of a big four of, or I guess this would be a big five of him, Maxey, George, and Joel Embiid. No, big four, big four. So I can math. That's why I am with it, man. Like I'm happy for him. Shout out to Amina Muhammad, big Warriors fan that we all know. Trey and I know, so I know that she was doing dances. So now he can retire as a Warrior if he so chooses. So I mean that's great. They got the best shooter ever, and they're keeping him in uniform. And we know that doesn't really happen a lot. It's been a while since we've seen somebody get drafted by a team and stay with that team for so long. So good for Steph Curry, good for the Warriors doing the right thing after losing Klay Thompson. Kind of bittersweet for, I'm sure, Steph watching Klay Thompson go, but hey, at least he gets to be a Warrior for life. He's the cornerstone. So Trey.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this makes sense. He is probably the greatest player in Warriors history. If you're not counting, if you're not counting Wilt, right? Because
Will
Wilt
Chamberlain.
technically played for the Warriors. So if you're not counting Wilt, I would say Steph is probably the greatest player in Warriors history. So obviously it makes sense to bring him back. The question I think we're all asking is whether Steph is able to continue his level of play, and will his level of play pull the Warriors along, knowing how they've struggled over the last couple of years, despite the fact that I think it was 4 seasons ago they won a championship, and because of everything that's happened in that last 4 years, Kevin Durant leaving, Clay leaving, a lot of shakeup with the roster and who's going to be their center. Um, I think it's good for Steph, though. As you mentioned, it's been a long time since we've had a player. I mean, I think the last player, other than LeBron, obviously, well, LeBron has popped around, other than Kobe. It's been a long time. We thought Dame was going to be that player as well, and that was incorrect.
Tim
So
Duncan, right? It wasn't Tim Duncan.
I guess it would be Kobe and Tim Duncan were the last two players who really stuck it out with the team that they were drafted by and retired with that team. Um, so yeah, great signing. This could very well be the last time we see Steph Curry in a Warriors jersey. Who knows? Um, but shout out to the Warriors for and Steph Curry for the commitment he's had, and in particular over the last 4 or 5 years, despite the fact that they've struggled so much um, to get in the playoffs in a lot of cases.
Hmm. All right. Yep. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. Moving right along, the Sixers make it official with Gorshan Yabusele. Yeah. So for those of you that watched the Olympics last, what was it, a week or two ago, you saw this dude Gorshan Yabusele, a former Celtic, who kind of his skill set. He still had an improving skill set, so he went over there to Real Madrid. For those of you that didn't know, as I didn't, they have a basketball team. So there's basketball powerhouse as well, and he was doing pretty well over there, 17, 18 points a game, per game, which is hard to do over there. I'm told, especially since they play with FIBA rules, it's very hard to, score consistently there. And y'all saw he was like the little engine that could. He posterized LeBron, gave LeBron an Olympics memory he will never forget. um, you know, um, he was the guy, man. He's the my reaction to this is the type of guy, like this is the type of guy that you need. This is the guy that I think a lot of Sixers fans thought PJ Tucker would be. He's a lot younger. He can actually shoot the ball. I mean, he needs to work on that 3-pointer, but if nothing else, he can be that energy guy, that guy that you just hate unless he's on your team. I think he can be that guy. He can be the little energy guy. You saw it against the United States in the Olympics, right? Like he was getting those rebounds, he was ducking that ball, he was blocking those shots, he was making it hard. I mean, most of the time when he got dominated, it was against his teammate Joel Embiid. So, like or future teammate, I should say. So, I mean, this is another guy. Like the Sixers do really well with finding these guys and signing them late, like Kelly Oubre last year, and they do really well with French players, right? Like Nico Batum, obviously, but as far as homegrown, Timothy Lualu Cabarro. I mean, do y'all remember him? Like, Gorshan Yabusele said, that he talked to Timothy Lualu Cabarro, and he still loves it here, and Nicholas Batum and other French players who have played in Philly. So, I mean, clearly the French love Philadelphia. I mean, what more can you say? So, great signing by Daryl Morey and whoever is the international scout for the Sixers or the international scouts for the Sixers. They definitely deserve a raise because this was a big get. This was a guy. I remember talking to Trey about this off air about it like a few weeks ago. I said, this is a guy that's Sixer. Like, it's kind of like Kelly Oubre, like just has Sixer written all over him. And might end up just like Kelly Oubre, like getting a long-term contract later on. This is a prove it deal. For lack of a better term, you don't really see that in the NBA a lot. I mean, obviously Kelly Oubre last year, but this is a prove it deal, and he might be worth the money. I think some of y'all might just need to back up the brakes truck for Gorshan Yabusele. Yep. And I look forward to seeing Philadelphia, because we famous for this, finding a nickname for this dude, because I'm really interested to see what the nickname is going to be, what the Philly nickname for him is going to be. Trey, go ahead. Those of you that are outside the city, you don't understand, but we
Yeah.
we come up with some creative nicknames. So go ahead,
Um,
go ahead, Trey.
no, I love it. I love the signing. I only saw pieces of them, but I'm and Kylie, I'm a big fan of players like this, the hustle guys who are gonna put their body on the line. I was that player in high school. I was the king of the taking the charge. So for me, I really appreciate a player who is gonna kind of do the everything, get rebounds, play defense, and is not afraid to put their body on the line. Um, and I think the other thing was my biggest concern with Sixers was I was like, I feel like we need a backup four. And Yabusele can be that, right? He can play the 4 or the 5. Um and be that guy. We'll see it, if he's able to develop at least the corner 3 to help stretch the defense. He reminds me kind of who's a former Sixer as well, Montrezl Harrell. Kind of an energy guy who can come off the bench, hype, kind of bring some hype into the arena. grab a rebound or get a nice block here and there, or get a nice dunk that kind of energizes the team and the fans as well. So I'm looking forward to him on this team. I think he's going to get along very well with the players because of that. In particular, like Joel Embiid, just like his desire to kind of just be that guy who throws his body on the line. So maybe perhaps a nickname for him is the guy. For those who have seen the Spy Kids movies, there's this like rumor in the Spy Kids 3 movie about there's the guy, right? So maybe Yabusele is the guy. Maybe that's his nickname. I don't know.
I feel like we're just gonna be very uncreative and just call him Yabu or Big G. I feel like it's gonna be Big G. I feel like it's gonna either be Yabu or Big G.
I want to look it up. I want to see if he has any. I'll go on his basketball
I,
reference
I
page.
I think it's music something. I think it's
It's
like I
I
think
don't
it's
see any nicknames on here.
oh well.
Oh well, I see. Okay, so I see something that says Dancing Bear. I don't know what that means. I don't know
Yeah,
if that's his
yeah. I was
nickname.
about to say. I think that was his nickname in college was
Okay,
dancing.
okay.
Yeah, because he dances a lot. But I think we kind of answered this question. He brings energy to the team. He's gonna be that guy, that tough guy, that dog. That's what they need. Sixers need more dogs. Obviously, they've got Paul George, they've got Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, but they need more dogs, especially off the bench. And I think he's the energy guy, the dog. That's what you that's what you kind of need. We'll come up with something way more creative than the
Or
dancing.
perhaps his if his nickname was Dancing Bear in college, and we're saying he's gonna be this energy kind of like aggressive guy. Maybe it's just Bear. For those
Yeah,
who watch the show The Bear, that's the nickname of one of the main characters in the show. But so maybe we call him Bear.
yeah. Uh, Trey knows. For those that don't know, you might see it. It is in the description box below. My latest article for Last Word of Sports is about NBA teams with the most approved this season. Sometimes article ideas that I put in the Tribune and then lastwordonsports.com and WatsonSportsTakes.com, they end up here. So definitely watch out. So who are the NBA teams with the most approved this season? The Phoenix Suns. The New York Knicks. Trey knows how I feel. I don't know if the power of friendship can take the New York Knicks that far. So I'm gonna give. I think I've talked ad nauseum about the Suns and how I think that this will probably be the last chance that Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. I have no sourcing on this that they have together. I mean, we are already hearing about during this offseason that there might be a chance that Devin Booker is tired of being in Phoenix, tired of losing in Phoenix, and wants to come east. And I think he was associated with the Knicks, but that was obviously before they got Mikal Bridges. And have Julius Randle now, but we're already seeing it, right? And we know Kevin Durant is a stranger to rumors dropping about him wanting to leave. Obviously, Bradley Beal, is at the tail end of his career. So is Kevin Durant. Probably, but Bradley Beal more on the tail end of his career than Kevin Durant, obviously. But I think there's all sorts of pressure on the three of them to stay healthy and actually like put it together. Obviously, Devin Booker and Kevin Durant got to work on their chemistry even more playing on the Olympics team together. So I think there's already a lot of pressure on Phoenix to at least get to the second round of the playoffs and not just be eliminated by Minnesota last year, Denver the year before that, just not by the new hotness. So, I think there's a lot of pressure on them. I think I didn't even mention this in my article, but I think there's a lot of pressure on the Oklahoma City Thunder just because now you're seeing that, like I said a few weeks ago, they're essentially constructing a team to beat Dallas. That is all they're doing. Like Minnesota constructed a team last offseason specifically to beat Denver. You will kind of see what the Thunder are specifically constructing a team to beat Dallas. That is it. They are constructed. That's why they went out and got dude from Chicago. That's why they went out and got Caruso. I don't know why I forget that. That was the name. That was the name of the antagonist, and everybody hates Chris, and I love that show. So that Alex Caruso, right? That's why they went and got him. Another year of Shea and Chet getting together. So I don't want to say obviously there's more pressure on the Suns than the Thunder, but the pressure is mounting, especially to prove that last year wasn't a fluke, that they can be consistently a top three, top four team in the West. Like I said, the New York Knicks, the power of friendship last through an 82 game season. you know, last from playing 20 games in 3 months to, or what is it? No, 5 months, right? October to April. 5 months, right? Yeah, 5 months to playing 82 games. Can it last 82 plus games? Because obviously the in season tournament doesn't count, but the in season tournament counts. What's that? 86. So like it's really an 86 game regular season. But the Sixers have a lot of pressure on them, right? The cash in. Daryl Morey showed a lot of people, prove me right by saying, you give Daryl Morey a chance with money, he's going to do something. And he did something. Got Paul George, got Gorshon Yabusele, re-signed Tyrese Maxey, rewarded him for his loyalty. Probably is about to give Joel Embiid a 250 to at least 350 plus $1 million extension in a minute. Don't be mad when this happens because then Trey knows there's a lot of nonsensical Sixers fans and a couple of groups that we're in that overrate everything. You pay Joel Embiid that money. Just I don't want to hear y'all crying in a few weeks. You pay Joel Embiid that money. I don't care that y'all think he's going to decline. Y'all been saying that forever, and he keeps getting better, right, Trey? So, I am of the mindset that the Sixers have a lot of pressure, the Knicks have a lot of pressure, the Thunder have a lot of pressure, the Suns have a lot of pressure, and I think the Nuggets have a lot of pressure too because Jokic is getting any younger. Jamal Murray is already making noise about contract extension. You know, what's his name is going through a lot with his brothers, so hopefully he'll be all right. Michael Porter. So I think there's a lot of pressure on Denver too. I think Denver will be breaking up very soon because I think that it'll after they re-sign Jamal Murray, Michael Porter, I think is gonna find out that the piggy bank doesn't open for him. So it opens for Jokic and Murray, doesn't open for you. So I think Denver is kind of on this last place too, and the Bucks. How could I forget the Bucks? The Bucks. On to you, Trey. Sorry.
Yeah, I think there are a number of teams that have some incredible pressure and a lot to prove. I think a team that's in a unique place, I said this before, is the OKC Thunder. I think they're kind of in that same spot that the Warriors were going back, over a decade now, where they were a young team coached by Mark Jackson with a very high ceiling, but couldn't get over the hump of getting past the Spurs. And they made that coaching switch up, and boom, the rest is history, right? Um, and I think if I, as a player and as a coach, if I'm the OKC Thunder, I think there's some internal pressure on themselves to prove that they can get over the hump. Last year was a bit disappointing. You expected them as the number one seed in the West to do a little bit more and not get knocked out in the second round. So I think they have a lot to prove this season, which is to say that they have. I think this is an opportunity for them to prove that they are one of the premier teams in the West, and that they're not just a regular season team. I think this year the Sixers do have a lot to prove. We know that they have struggled to get past the second round. Ever since that Toronto Raptors game against Kawhi where he hit the buzzer beater, it's just been struggle after struggle after struggle.
Don't bring that up.
Right, I know. I'm sorry. I brought up some an event that has given both of us PTSD.
Don't bring that travel up.
But yeah, they have a lot to prove. Will Paul George actually work? I mean, I believe he will, but there's a lot on the line there when you put it together such a great team. It reminds me of the dream team with the Eagles rather, a while back, where they put together this so-called dream team roster, and you said, "Oh wow, this team is going to make the playoffs and go to the Super Bowl," and nothing happened. Nothing came of it. In fact, they were, it wasn't even like they just kind of like didn't quite meet expectations and were a good team. They just like completely bombed that entire season. So the Sixers are definitely up there. Weirdly enough, the Celtics, and in particular Jason Tatum as well, because you look at the team, you say, "Oh, they won a championship," but you don't. I'm looking at that team and I'm saying their supposed best player, supposed air quotes. So sorry to the Celtics fans, Didn't even win Finals MVP.
They
Yeah.
can add you now because it's not just me. They can add you. They always add.
So
They always add
so
me. They can add you this time. But you said it, not me.
what they have to prove is that they are truly it like are they truly the best team in the East? That's what they're proving this year. Um and does spending $300 million on two players actually lead to, and for one season it did, but does it lead to anything beyond that? And I'll also throw, who else will I throw in there on the West? The Suns, of course, because of the level of caliber of player that you have there, and where they are in their careers. Devin Booker being the youngest, but like you mentioned, Bradley Beal being on the tail end of his career, not so much because he's older, but more so because he's been injury prone, and Kevin Durant being on the back half of his career. And I think I'll also throw in, who else will I throw in there? I will throw, I think that's it. I think the Suns, Celtics, Sixers, and Thunder.
Okay, cool. So we're in agreement on three of
Mm-hmm.
them. All right. So sports gamers rejoice. Oh my goodness, y'all. After we got CFB in July, Madden early in August, I got two or three. The next one, NBA 2K finally giving early access to everybody if you pre-ordered. Instead of those select YouTubers that we all watch from my career and Park and all this other stuff. But September 3rd, I will be playing King Kylan 2012. If you want to get seen in CFB or Madden, Trey and I have this walking competition going on right now. I think we are tied in 2K. I think it's 3-1 in Madden. He's trying to get me seen by a mutual friend of ours, Kenan. Um, you know, but we'll see about that one. But 2K drops on September 3rd. Trey, your reaction to this?
For those who don't know, and Kylie knows this, I used to be a big gamer. Like it was 2K, Madden. I even played NBA Live a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Fortnite, Call of Duty, Dragon Ball Z. Like I played a lot of video games. In recent years, I have definitely fallen off that cliff in terms of how many video games I play. Pretty much right now for me, it's like a few games of Fortnite, every other day. But yeah, I mean, I know it's always an exciting time of year for multiple reasons, because it's not just 2K that comes out. You got 2K Madden comes out not too long, and then also early access. Lord have mercy. Treyarch also just opened early access for Black Ops 6 as well. So
COD. Oh, that's why I see. That's why I've been seeing
Black Ops 6,
COD.
yeah.
That's why I've been seeing
Um,
COD all over the place. I was like, why is COD trending? It's not November.
yeah. So chances are you probably won't see me playing 2K until probably later this year.
Yes,
Um,
you did.
um, but I'm a my career player, and periodically I'm a play now player, but yeah,
He cheats. Let me stop.
I cheat.
No.
Oh, I don't even no. Look, we played a game of Madden earlier this year over Christmas break. I had the Eagles. He had no. I think you had the Eagles, and I had,
You had the Jets.
was it the Jets? Yeah, because I'm confident in my skills. I don't play Madden that much anymore, but I'm confident in my skills. This man, this is his only win, mind you, against me, in Madden, and I'm in like cover 4, and this guy throws like two crazy like 80-yard touchdowns deep to AJ Brown, and I'm just like, how is that possible? I'm in the right coverage, and somehow and I'm not talking about like, so my player tripped or it's raining or whatever, and whatever, and AJ Brown beats. I'm talking about this is 20-yard difference in cover 4 deep down the field. And I'm like, come on, man, you cheating. You cheating me here.
I'm not
Um,
cheating the game, bro. It's not like I hacked it. We were
I didn't
playing
say
the
you
same.
were cheating. I said the game cheated me.
Oh man, but look, man. Look, as somebody's playing that, I'm playing CFB right now. I haven't dived into Madden yet. I do have it loaded up on the PS5 behind me, just haven't played it. Been too busy, as Trey knows, building my dynasty and building my Syracuse dynasty. Right now, number 3 team in the land on my dynasty. I am that dang good. So we will see. But NBA 2K, great game. I was a live player like Trey, but now he actually converted me into a my career player. I was just a franchise guy, and then he was like, "Well, why don't you play my career?" And I was like, "Oh, okay. Oh, that's all right." I think it was 2K16, the Orange Juice story, and ever since I've been a my career guy. So, I play that now more than franchise, and he's shocked because he knows I was I was building a dynasty with the Sixers in the franchise. But I'm very interested. My GM is back. We got my court. It looks like you could actually get a 90, a 99, and get legendary rep now in my career. Maybe they've actually, Trey and I have been big on this, actually not really separated, but like if we can just have a fully realized my career where you can get that rep and that legendary. Seems like they listened to us this year. My court's back. I mean, that's a big dub right there. My court's back. You got a mansion or an apartment again. Maybe they'll give you a girlfriend back this year. Who knows? We don't know because the story isn't out yet. But I'm excited for 2K. Let us know. King Kylan 2012 is mine. PSN. I don't have an Xbox. Straight all PlayStation over here.
PlayStation all the way, baby.
All gas, no brakes on PlayStation over here.
And
Um,
my PSN is Preached Alarm. Preached Alarm 09. It
yeah.
was for those people always ask me this question. What kind of weird username is that? It was an old Xbox gamer tag. It was like one of the default ones, and when I switched over from Xbox or I really should say switched back from PlayStation, or from Xbox over back to PlayStation, I just kept the same username. So there
Okay.
you go.
Cool.
Preached Alarm 09.
Cool, man. So right now we're gonna get into that. So let us know if you got it September 3rd at Kyler W. Watson, Mr. Taylor 3 on Instagram, at Kyler W. Watson on X/Twitter. Let us know if you playing too. Hit us up. Maybe we'll get a game together. Maybe somebody will live stream, and maybe one of us will jump in. You never know, y'all. You never know till you ask, y'all. So we're head right up to our shout out segment. So I'll start here. We want to send a shout out to because this guy, mutual friend of both of ours, Kyle Wilson. We want to shout him out. Congratulations. It's his birthday, another year around the sun. And he's also about to get an upgrade that we'll talk about next month. But happy birthday to him. Great shout out to Kyle. Happy birthday to him. Shouts out to everybody. Obviously, we talked about this last week. Who has started school, whether that be college, like Trey's sister, my cousin, as well at the University of Tennessee and Liberty University. And to anybody who has started school already, we know that we have various diversity in listeners as far as geography. So some of y'all have started school already. Some of y'all started school on Tuesday. The normal way, starting school on Tuesday. So shouts out to y'all. Shouts out to Coco Golf, man, being the sixth woman to make it. I think win 60 matches and make it to the second round of the U.S. Open, defending her title. We'll see if she can go back to back. The field has never been more clear, I think, for her. Now with a lot of the power players either losing or dropping out due to injury, so we will see. But shout out to her. Trying to think. Well, who else I want to shout out? Oh, shout out to all the Paralympics athletes. Paralympics are going on right now. For those of you that love the Olympics, check out the Paralympics. Check out our Olympians who have different things going on in their lives, disabilities and stuff, but they're still athletes. They're still winning medals. So check that out. Support those Paralympians. I think that's it. I'm trying to think. Yes. The other thing with those two hockey players we'll get to, and he's not him, they aren't them. Unfortunate loss of life. I'll get to that later. For those of you that know and don't know about what happened in this area today with those two hockey players. Very unfortunate what happened last night. Go ahead, Trey.
I'm going to shout out. We were actually, I think, supposed to talk about him, but we kind of neglected him. So I'll give him a shout out. Is TJ McConnell signing a big deal?
Oh yeah.
For those who don't know, I'm a big fan of him. Colin is a fan of him. He's a former Sixer. He's one of those guys in the same way that Yabusele is. So I guess shout out to Yabusele as well. He's one of those guys that's been in the league for a while now and just has always been a good hustle guy. One of the things early in his career was that he didn't really have much of a jumper. He's fixed that. and has become a formidable, in some cases, starting point guard actually, when given the chance. Um, side note, aside from the shout outs, um, Zubac of the Clippers actually signed a 3-year extension, 3-year, $58.6 million extension as we were talking. Um, so I guess shout out to him for
Shout
getting
out,
the bag. That's actually a
shout out,
max contract for him.
shout out to him for taking advantage of being somebody who will play, second or third fiddle to Kawhi Leonard, but still get your money. So shouts out to him, man.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And my last shout out would be to um Lord have mercy.
I hope I
Um
didn't steal your thunder with that Kyle shout out.
no, actually wasn't. Well, actually no, you did, I guess, with Coco, because I was going to mention Coco. So I think those are my main two. Shout out to Zubac for getting the bag.
You can
And
shout
shout
out
out to CJ
Francis.
McCon.
You can shout out Francis Tiafo. He won. He won while we were talking. Beat Ben
Who's
Shelton.
who?
Francis Tiafo, Big Fo.
I don't know. I
That
don't know who that is. I'm sorry.
he's a black tennis player from the DMV. He
Okay.
won.
Okay.
He won today.
Well, shout out to him. I don't know who you are. As who was it? Kiki Palmer said, "I'm sorry, but I don't know that man." But shout out to you nonetheless.
All right. He's not him. She's not her. They aren't them. As I alluded to, I have one. I think this might be the biggest one. So I'm gonna let you go first, Trey. If you got one, or I can go first. I'm about to go on a rant, so you might want to go first.
I don't know. I feel like for me a big one is the NCAA.
Mhm.
Trying to essentially union blocking. To me that's a big, like, what the heck
Scabbing.
are you doing? Um, that's not it's not a good look. Um, and who else will I throw out there? So I guess that's a they aren't them scenario. Uh, and I think that's really it for me. Like, I didn't see anything necessarily this week, at least in the world of sports. There's won't go there, but there's other other avenues where there are some he's not him, or maybe she's not him, she's not her moments
It's
outside of sports. But
but it's for everything. So if you see one, because my two aren't sports related. Well, one is, but it's just stupid. It's just one of those unfortunate situations, as I mentioned about those
right,
last
right.
players. So,
No,
but
I
I'm
hear you.
if you got one that goes beyond that, go ahead, bro.
No. Those are I'm not gonna go there. There's
All
some
right, all right.
yeah.
So
I
one,
won't go into politics, is what I'll say.
okay. So one is close to Trey's heart. Unfortunately, we had a person. Obviously, unfortunately, both of mine have to do with New Jersey residents, unfortunately, whose lives were cut short. Over this week, a couple of days ago, actually, or over the weekend, I should say, but we found out about, I think, on Monday afternoon, that a University of Delaware student unfortunately lost her life. Trey lives. For those that don't know, Trey is Philadelphia born, but raised in Delaware, not far from UDEL's campus, right? Um, so unfortunately, a girl just 18 years old, same age as Trey's sister, lost her life unfortunately because of a reckless motorcyclist. For those of you that don't know, you may never have been to UDEL's campus in Newark, Delaware, right? Newark. Uh, some of y'all see it and say, I did it to Newark until I was corrected. Newark, Delaware. Um, Unfortunately, there was a motorcyclist driving reckless. Don't know if he or she was drunk or not, but they were driving through UDEL's campus. Those that don't know UDEL, where it is in the middle of nowhere, but it's a really big campus. Really massive, especially in the main throughway. I'm gonna butcher the street name, but I know Trey knows what I'm talking about. The main throughway. The girl was
Main
across.
Street,
Yeah, the
Main Street
main
and College Ave.
yeah, Mainstream College Ave. The girl was walking. She was on the crosswalk. Unfortunately for her, this reckless motorcyclist who was stopped and tried to be arrested by a UDEL public safety officer, ran away from it. For those that don't know, the tri-state area of Philly, New Jersey, and Delaware has been struggling with these reckless drivers who run away from tickets um, and run through red lights. And he was running away from the tickets. The UDEL public safety officer made the responsible choice and didn't chase after him. But unfortunately for this young lady, 18 years old from North Jersey, just starting just starting literally her first week of freshman year at UDEL. Unfortunately, was one of 5 people hit, and she unfortunately happened to be the one who lost their life from this reckless motorcyclist. For those of you that follow me on Facebook, you probably saw me share this story earlier this week, and I put on the caption "Reckless driving, affects everybody in all stages of life." And unfortunately, this girl, 18 years old, in the prime of her life, lost her lost her life trying to get an education. As Trey just said, her name was Noelia Gomez from North Jersey. So praying and condolences to the Gomez family in North Jersey. And then today, or last night, I should say, we had a drunk driver here in South Jersey. I'm not from South Jersey, but in the Philly area, who was recklessly driving, had about 5 or 6 beers, decided with all the technology that we have. I can't speak for Trey, but I know for me, DUI is big for me, especially now in 2024, where you have Uber, Lyft, a friend. Like, you don't have to drive drunk or drive reckless in these streets now in 2024. As we've seen, unfortunately, with Noelia Gomez, the Goudreau family, unfortunately, has also suffered a loss because last night, in South Jersey. There was this guy, Sean Higgins, who was driving reckless. There was a driver in an SUV in front of him who was making a safe pass to let these bicyclists, like, you don't see this often with cyclists. Like, you see people like just run around them, be unsafe. But in this case, we had a responsible driver trying to let these two bicyclists respect the bicycle lane, let them keep going. And instead, as you often see, Trey's talked about this. He's seen it in Atlanta. I've seen it in Philadelphia and around, that people don't respect. You think the bike lane is just another passing lane and don't respect it, right? And it needs to be respected. And in this case, this guy swerved around them, used it as a passing lane, wound up hitting both of these brothers. Johnny Goudreau, 31 years old, star player for the Columbus Blue Jackets, somebody who is known in these Philadelphia and South Jersey hockey streets, along with his brother Johnny Goudreau, 29 years old. A little bit, what's that? 2 years older than you, Trey, or a year? Like
Yeah,
lost
I'm
both.
27.
Yeah, both of them lost their lives, and to triple the tragedy, right? They were groomsmen, and today was the day that their sister got married. Now, can you imagine that? You lost your brothers last night, and today is supposed to be the best night of your life. You gotta go and get married without your brothers, and you gotta put on a happy face after a tragedy just happened. That's what their sister had to do today, after the worst night in their family's life. And you know they aren't them to you people all over this country and around the world who recklessly drive drunk, drive impaired in any way, because you're freaking costing people their lives. An 18-year-old, a 29-year-old, and a 31-year-old. Millennials and Gen Z being affected by your stupidity. Like, what is wrong with y'all? Like, I definitely think that DUIs, and this might be my emotion talking, but you know, at some point, at worst, it deserves life in prison. Like, you can make a mistake, but come on now. In this economy, right, with all this technology, driving drunk it's just reckless, man. And just recklessly driving. And some of y'all don't even drive drunk. You're just reckless. You run red lights. You cause people like Trey to just have to account for your stupidity, and drivers all over the world have to account for your stupidity. So not only do you have to look out for yourself, you got to look out for you people that are just recklessly driving. Before we even get to the DUIs, some of y'all just taking your lives into your own hands every day. We're lucky that we don't have Final Destination 2s going on more often with how some of y'all recklessly drive in this country and all over the world. Like, so come on, please get your acts together. Please drive better, drive safely, take public transportation, do something else, take Uber, for lack of a better term, take taxis, because there are people, the Gomez family, the Goudreau family, like people who are hockey, who are up and coming or current hockey stars. Sister has to put on a brave face today on what's supposed to be the happiest day of her life. She's without her brothers. And it's crazy. Now they only have, instead of 3 living children, the Goudreau family only has 1. And again, supposed to be the happiest day of her life. I don't know them personally. Probably had a whole honeymoon plan. but now it's basically a grief moon because you got to deal with this now. All because of two people's stupidity affecting two different families, and it's crazy. So my day aren't them to you people out here driving recklessly and driving impaired, because there are real life consequences to what you do when you decide to get behind the wheel. And I'm gonna leave it at that.
And information wise, I can't speak for the Jersey accident, but for the Delaware accident, blanking on his name, Brian Brittle is actually been charged with murder in the second degree.
Oh, they finally released his name, because
Yeah.
before they hadn't released his name yet.
Yes,
Okay.
Brian Brittle is his name, and he's been charged with murder in the second degree, which he should be.
Right. Yeah. Hit 5 people. For those that don't know, they're all UDEL students, because
he hit 5 people. He killed one, and he also he ended up on the sidewalk and ran into a light pole. This man was just straight up just reckless driving. And as someone I never lived in that area, but I used to work at the Domino's on Main Street on University of Delaware's campus. Things get a little crazy, especially during rush hour. But it's school season. It's like, why even, right? Like, why even do something like that, knowing,
right?
I will never condone reckless driving or DUI, but at the same time, it's like, school is in session. Kids are walking around late at night, going to study or whatever the case may be. UD is it's a large campus, but it's small enough that you can walk around pretty much everywhere on campus. So there's pedestrians everywhere that are students and are non-students, because there's also, neighborhoods nearby of so it's terrible.
Right. And he was driving and obviously it's 2 different things. Mr. Brittle over here was driving a motorcycle. So 2 different things, but same thing, vehicular homicide. So, so just don't do it, man. Those of you who, if there's nothing else this podcast taught you, we got into sports, we're getting into serious things. Don't drive reckless. If you're a reckless driver and you're a fan of this podcast, please stop driving reckless. please stop. If you get nothing else out of this podcast and you're a reckless driver, you're a fan of this podcast, please stop driving reckless. Stop running red lights. You put a lot of people in, obviously this didn't come from running a red light. This was just straight up. Both of these things were just straight up reckless driving on both counts. One with DUI, one was just reckless. But some of y'all recklessly drive running through red lights every day. That's reckless driving too. Just stop. Just stop. Like, it's school season, like Trey just said. You got college students running around these big cities and small towns everywhere. You've got young kids. Some of y'all don't even stop for the buses. We've seen that. A lot of people have gotten a lot of views on news stations all over this country from those of y'all that don't stop with the bus arm extended. Let's just talk about that. That's a common one too that y'all mess up on. So we'll move right along, because I want to end this on a positive Labor note. But prayers and condolences to the Gomez family on the loss of Noelia. Prayers and condolences to the Gaudreau family. Unfortunately, even though Trey and I, we're fans of the Flyers and everything, but not like big hockey heads. Unfortunate loss for the tri-state area, Philly, South Jersey, Delaware hockey community, because it seems like they were big names in the hockey community here. And that's as Trey and I know, that's a niche community, and it's a shame that these 2 31 and 29-year-olds had their lives cut short because of a DUI. So we'll leave it at that, because I want to have a happier Labor Day and not be angry. So it's good that I got this out. So with anything else left to say, you got anything else to add to that, Trey?
I guess you
you're
gave
in Georgia, so you see.
No. I mean, on a happier note, I mean, I've already texted him personally off air, but shout out to Kyle as well. I won't reveal. There is another surprise that he has, but I won't reveal it. We'll talk about that next month, because by then it'll probably have happened. So, but yeah, happy birthday, Kyle. For those who don't know, Kyle actually is a Morehouse man and had lived with his wife in Japan for I think it was 5 years, 6 years. And then he came back to Atlanta to go to school. So, I mean, we've known each other for years, but we kind of got to get to know each other a lot better in the last couple of years. He's actually up in, I'm not going, we ain't revealing locations. We ain't giving out people's addresses, but nope. He's back living with his family now. So friend he's not in Atlanta anymore.
Friend in real life to both of us. Like, by the time he sees this, the other surprise will probably be out. But did you tell him to watch the show?
Maybe I'll text him and tell him to watch the show.
uh, yeah, but yeah, can happy birthday to him and shouts. Do we want to shout out his brother, Kalen, for his upgrade
Oh
or
yeah, I guess his brother Kalen also put a ring on it with his now fiance Rachel. So shout out to him as well. Shout out for two reasons actually. Shout out for that, so for on his engagement, and also shout out he's actually going out to Chicago to study at Moody Bible College. So shout out to him for that as well, because I think he pretty much proposed and then packed his bags and went up to Chicago. So
upgrade?
he's got a lot going on there as well.
Upgrades all around in the inner circle. Shouts out to a lot of people in our inner circle. Shouts out to we won't we're not revealing ages, but shouts out to the family members here as we talked about the starting at UT and Liberty over the past few weeks for their freshman year. Shouts out to the class of 2028, crazily enough.
Yeah,
um,
2028.
uh, so so shouts out to all of y'all upgrading. Shouts out to everybody that's about to be on the grill either today, tomorrow, Sunday, or Monday. Shouts out to all you grill masters out there. But happy Labor Day. Happy college football kickoff season for those people that celebrate. Hopefully, your teams make you really happy this weekend. Unfortunate, like I said, prayers and condolences to the Goudreau and Gomez family. At least their capturers were, at least their what am I looking for? Their criminals, for lack of a better term, allegedly were caught, and they don't have to worry about this for both of those families. But yeah, happy
Perpetrators.
Labor Day. Shouts out to all of y'all. Hopefully, y'all hope that y'all have a good and safe time. Hope that you enjoyed this show. Like I said, we enjoy getting the sports, but it's good to have some versatility to be able to talk about some more serious stuff that's affecting a lot of people. Obviously, it affected people in Jersey and Delaware this time, but y'all get affected by this stuff all over the world. So, happy Labor Day. Trey, you got anything to add? Shouts out where these people can find you.
Yeah, no. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Keep up with the channel. Feel free to share the podcast with your friends. You'll be able to find it on YouTube. And maybe someday it'll be available in all other places where you find your podcasts. My Instagram, as Colin mentioned, is Mr. Taylor the Third. So MrTayloriii. And then you can also, as Colin mentioned at the beginning, find me on YouTube, Mr. Taylor Movies. I've got a couple short films up, and probably we'll have another one up in the near future. And I do these 48-hour film competitions. There's one coming up in October, so you guys should be seeing another short film by the end of the year. So
Cool, man. Cool. And yeah, so hopefully Morgan will be back next week. But if not, like we said, she's in the middle of her summer/fall of weddings. So you might see more Trey and some other people for these next few weeks until wedding season ends. So yeah, so congrats to all y'all. Happy Labor Day. Like we said, have a great and enjoyable weekend. And NFL is coming next week. Basketball will be here by the end of October. So let's all get excited and enjoy what's left of some of the sunshine and the summery weather that we have left. See y'all later.
peace.